What's going on, y'all? This podcast is brought to you by Modern Roots Life. Modern Roots Life is a Christian-owned and operated company, and it's bringing real health back to its roots. They offer powerful, all-natural health supplements such as beef liver, cod liver oil, beef tallow, magnesium, and mineral-rich salts, all sourced the way God intended. Clean, simple, and from the earth. So whether you're looking to boost your energy, restore mineral balance, or just fuel your family with real nourishment, Modern Roots Life has got you covered. Guys, in this community, we're trying to get healthy in our mind, in our body, in our spirit. So don't neglect your health. If you want more information, check out modernrootslife.com and check the link in my description. You know, people often ask me how they can support me. Well, I think it's pretty cool if you can support me by supporting the people who support me, and you get something in return. And being healthy is a pretty good return. Well, what's going on, guys? We got a special episode today. I've got the Nephilim Dumb Squad with us today. I mean, the Nephilim Death Squad is here with us to talk about the debate between Timothy Alberino. What's going on, Top and Raven? How you guys doing?
What's up, brother? Thanks for having us.
We're doing good. We're actually changed. I mean, Nephilim Dumb Squad's a banger, but Sons of Seth Squad is actually
Sons of Seth Squad.
That's the first. That's going to be our next slide into once we disprove the Nephilim or somebody does. So.
You know what we should do is we should take that branding Nephilim Dumb Squad and roll that into something because that is a banger. Yeah, man, we're coming hot off the heels of the Alberino debate, which was
not a debate.
Not really a debate.
It was an Alberino talking to.
It was an Alberino MK Ultra session that midway through we put our foot down and said no more, no mas. It was bizarre and it was a departure from our typical content in a really big way, but it seems to be making ripples right now. Not a good time to be Timothy Alberino.
No.
Well, you know, it's interesting. So, yeah, to set this up, if you guys have not seen, and you guys, obviously the links will be in the description, so you guys can watch the full podcast that these guys have done with Tim Alberino. And yeah, so it was kind of advertised as a debate, but it was really just 2.5 hours of the Tim Alberino show.
Yeah.
Featuring Top, Matt, and Raven. But the debate was based on, are aliens demons? And I think that was kind of the title. And Tim Alberino and people like the Blurry Creatures have really tried so hard to push against that idea that the antiquated evangelical view is this is too simplistic. This is not what it is. This phenomenon is actually real. The abductions are real. The UFOs are real. Everything is real. They might come from Uranus. Who knows?
Yeah.
But obviously people, you know, who watch me and watch you guys, we're not exactly saying we know exactly what it is. The phenomenon is definitely demonic. We don't know how to I mean, obviously each individual case of like sightings and abduction stories, we take them with a pinch of salt and we try to analyze them as they will. So we all have a very similar view, I believe, when it comes to this phenomenon. Now, Tim is like really trying to, it seems like he's gone into this space of, which I think is a government op. It's like the people that are counterintelligence and they're people that are, you know, in 3-letter agencies. And I think that, I don't know, I think it's dangerous. But yeah, unfortunately, what I saw when I watched the whole debate, of course, I had a lot of stuff to say. And of course, I'm texting Raven back and forth and saying, oh, look at this. Mm-hmm. But I think that was kind of what I noticed was that what the debate turned into just Tim mostly just talking a lot and not giving you guys a lot of chance to respond.
Well, those are debate tactics.
Yeah. Filibustering.
But I would like to preface this with what the debate was supposed to be and what it was supposed to be about. And it was never really supposed to be a debate. This was the introduction. And this, keep in mind, this is after about, so he calls us out. He calls us retarded.
Yeah.
And then it turns into...
In all fairness, you guys call yourselves retarded.
No, that's fair.
Yeah. So he was over the target. Yeah.
I liked and retweeted that. That was, I was like, accurate. I'm surprised that you knew that you're paying attention. But he did call us out and he did it in that way. And then we played back with him and he tried to play back, but he's not very good at the playing back and forth with this fun meme stuff. David dressed up as him. You know, it kind of led...
Well, let's lay that out a little bit because what you're talking...
It's important to what we did here.
Yeah, because what you saw lacked quite a bit of context, meaning the debate. So you hit the nail on the head, JT. You said like Blurry Creatures and him are making this effort to separate demonic, the idea of demons or demonic from this alien phenomenon. And I've heard it. I'm sure you have. I'm sure a lot of people in the audience have heard it if they've, followed that content at all. This, dismissal. If you think aliens are demons, you're an idiot. And they've kind of been laying that groundwork. They'll say it flippantly. Every time I hear it, I kind of recoil a little bit. I'm like, well, that's silly. I mean, there's a huge, massive overlap. It's the same phenomenon, in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. After they said it enough times, eventually, I think the straw that broke the camel's back was Alberino posting something on X, and it said, if you're getting your alien information from Nephilim podcasts, you're an idiot. Never go full retard. Now, I don't know about you, but there's a lot of branding that happened.
I've sold like 150 shirts that say dangerous retards on them.
Exactly.
So I'm like, and then underneath it says a Nephilim Death Squad production.
Right. Is there any other podcasts that have Nephilim in the name?
Or that are retarded?
Or brand their fan base as retarded.
Right.
No. You're calling us out. So
that's what I thought. And
yeah, it's a little, it's kind of gay. It's very passive aggressive.
Yes.
He does this a lot, which is what we learned about him.
Just name the people, like if you're gonna call them out like that, because it's femme to do that.
It's feline cat-like behavior, which we've learned that's just what he does. Yeah. So we played with him. We made some memes. We dressed up like him. We made some funny shorts, and we put it out there. And keep in mind, the entire time he does not follow us.
Correct.
Will not follow us on any social media, but will respond at anything that we say about him. And it's never tagging him, never writing his name in the comments or whatever. It's just little digs that we're doing because he's doing, he's called
doing
us
the same thing.
You've tapped us.
Yes. And in fact, one of them was, I went and I bought an Indiana Jones outfit because the guy dresses like Indiana Jones. It's bizarre. I'm sure the audience knows that. And
you can't just do that. First off, you cannot just dress like Indiana Jones as a grown man and expect other people not to say anything.
But people haven't.
You guys are guilty. You guys are guilty of noticing.
Yes, exactly. I saw a pattern.
Many such cases.
I saw a pattern of behavior, and so I got an Amazon costume, Indiana Jones, and I just took a video of me in my mirror whipping my mirror, and the caption says, "If you think aliens are demons, you're retarded." And that's it. I put the bait out there. And look, this is how silly it started. He comments on it and he goes, maybe we can have an adult conversation about this, or you could behave like children. And I said, why would you think this is about you? And, so this is how the thing starts. And eventually,
you're so vain, you probably think this song is about you.
Yes.
It's plenty of people.
He probably wears sunglasses inside, Tim.
I actually have another friend. It's funny, when I first got on TikTok, his name is Luke Caverns. He ended up going on Rogan, but that's his shtick, is he definitely does the dress like Indiana Jones. And the very first time we ever did a live stream together, he played the dun 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 dun. So he's leaning into it. He's self-aware, and it's kind of weird to not notice that.
Well, I mean, look, the thing starts off playfully, but what eventually happens is he goes,
can we have a discussion?
Can we have a debate? Specifically a debate.
Yeah. Bring your receipts, boys. Let's have a debate. And I go, cool.
Debate me, bro.
Debate me, bro. Exactly.
Very gay. We don't do debates because exactly. It just sounds like it's like, hey, put on this oil and wrestle
also,
me.
Also, it's like have a debate about a thing that's widely disregarded by the intellectual community that currently is the status quo, right? So meaning even if you're into ancient archaeology and this and that, and you have your suspicions that there's an angelic force behind it, it is kind of hard to step out onto any stage and have a debate about things that almost unilaterally across the board in the academic community they disagree with wholeheartedly.
JT, bring your supernatural receipts.
Exactly. Bring your
you know what? That's interesting. You guys bring that up because I always make a point to say that on my podcast, is that there's things that I know, there's things that I believe, there's things that I think, and then I've got wild theories about things. I don't like to argue about the theorizing parts of things because we're really just getting into belief. What do you believe? But
exactly
when you talk about bringing actual receipts to this, well, outside of the Word of God, where we can all say we all agree on this, and this is what this says, but we still have different interpretations on what it says.
Yeah.
But then you get into stuff of the he said, she said stuff with this phenomenon, and it's you can't say that you've got conclusive proof of anything, even though that's one of the words he used, and that was one of the words that I was just that is honestly. Tim, for all the things that I've enjoyed him saying, like listening to him over the years and watching him on the Fall Brothers documentaries, when I heard him on podcasts, that was one of the things that always really rubbed me the wrong way, is that it's preposterous if you disagree with me. Like, you can't disagree with all this is settled. And it gives me vibes of like 2021 and 2020 of like,
thank you. Yep.
Trust me, I'm an expert. You guys don't know what you're talking about. And you're
the
like,
science is settled.
But we should be able to ask about that. And you shouldn't dismiss people as stupid for not believing you right away. Because you'd be crazy to trust somebody just based on, I know a guy who knows a guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So taking what you said there, a stupid man would go, hey, Timothy Alberino just said he'll come on my show. Come on the show. This is great. Let's do this. Can we do it tomorrow?
It's going to be big numbers.
Yeah, big numbers. A lot of clicks. We go, not interested. And then he goes, well, perhaps okay. Then we continue to make fun of him because now we've like uncovered so many nicknames and so many avenues.
Oh my God, the memes that came out of dragging Timothy Alberino.
Did you see the one I made yesterday? You didn't even respond to it.
The one with the big booty Megazord.
Yeah,
the Power Rangers Megazord.
Megalithic with 3 C's, dude. And he's just like, it's crazy.
We turned him into the most ruthless and silliest memes. None of it.
But that came after. This came after.
Sort of. We did a lot of things in the interim. He was asking for the debate for the better part of a month.
In the coffee shop, you can buy a tuna melt. Albacore tuna melt. That's on the menu. So this is fun. Yeah. We're having fun.
We're having a lot of fun.
He comes back. Have you guys procured your receipts? Are you ready for a debate? And I go, you know what, Tim? If you want to debate, I'll pay for you to fly out here. And you can come here. We could sit right across from each other here, that room, whichever room, whatever you want. We'll record it. We'll do a debate. In the age of Zoom, perhaps why not? Perhaps no, perhaps yes. And
why would I do that when Zoom is available?
So then he says no. So I go, okay, no. And then we just continue to make fun of you.
Yeah.
Because you've been talking a lot of shit, man. So,
eventually we did decide that we were going to give it to him, but we were going to drag it out and make him beg a little bit, which he did. And I decided, because this, like I said earlier in the show, this is a departure from the normal Nephilim Death Squad conversation. We have people come on, opposing ideas, doesn't matter. We just want to know what you're thinking about the world, how it works, and things of that nature. And so this is the first time that we're gearing up for a debate. He's challenged me to a debate. So I go, all right, let me at least try to understand what this guy is all about, because I've seen him on Blurry Creatures and I did enjoy his work. And I've listened to some of his solo stuff and I enjoyed that too. But I start going, I'm going to watch some of his old documentaries, right? And we start watching
well, the reason we do that is because our Bible expert, true believer, Matt, owner of the coffee shop, loves Timothy Alberino.
Loves Timothy Alberino.
Fan, big Timothy Alberino
Which
fan.
He's done good work. He's done a lot of good work in the space, and I could understand why he's a fan of Timothy Alberino.
I understand how he fools people so readily. So now
he's a very good talker. I mean, you have to give him that. Like he's very convincing. He's got his shtick, and he sticks with it. So yeah, if you. I feel like if you don't know a lot about, if you don't research this independently, you just how would anybody know any of this stuff? So you're saying he sure sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And I think that's why when I really enjoyed his earlier stuff, because I didn't know any of this stuff. But the more I started to research myself, I started to say, I don't really agree with that. And I don't really like the way he's phrasing that.
Yeah. So I didn't want to do it. And I still don't. If I had a time machine, I don't know if I would have, but Matt needed to see this. And we've been trying to tell Matt, we're like, no, this is how this guy is. And all the things that you think about him. And we're like, this is what he does. And we don't really want to deal with him because I don't like talking to feds. And Matt's like, no, making faces and all the shit.
He's like, no, dude, this is a guy that I've watched his DVDs. I've shown his
Matt
kids.
doesn't seem like he's got a very good poker face.
No,
the worst.
Matt is a real dude who
wears his heart on his face.
Absolutely
naive about the conspiracy world, but he's excellent in scripture. He loves the Lord, and he's a great addition to the team. And he's like this exposed heart, which was a lot of the problem.
It's what we needed, because if it was me and David sitting in a room, we'd just be agreeing.
And also, but this was rough for him.
So we were like, Matthew, sit down, watch these documentaries. Look at it.
Yeah. Look at it. And look, midway through the second documentary in the True Legend series with Tom Horn, Steve Quayle, and Tim Alberino, they start talking about this coming disclosure deception, alien disclosure. And they this is 10 years ago. And, I think it's like Steve Quayle says that this is the great deception. And Alberino says he is concerned that the Antichrist is going to come from this disclosure. And I'm sitting there, and look, if you're going to say aliens are demons in the strictest sense of they are, as the Book of Enoch puts it, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, there's an argument for that. You might consider Greys, and I'm open to the idea that they're sort of a biomechanical entity that allows for these spiritual entities to interface with our realm in a physical way.
Well, we have to define the spirit realm first.
Well, yeah, and that becomes a whole thing. But
yeah, let's go ahead and do that, and let's take an hour to
a literal hour, 50 minutes.
I make fun because that's how the show starts. Is that like the term demon? Like, let's define demon. But that's the kind of funny thing if you actually think about it.
Seconds.
The way that the Bible. So I think when we say demons, most of the time we are referring to unclean spirits that the Book of Enoch talks about, where these are these disembodied spirits. But the funny thing is the term demon is really not isolated to that, because the Book of Enoch never uses that word, demon. So I think that's interesting, because in the same way that if you read the KJV, you can cast out devils. Well, of course, when we think of the devil, we think of capital T, capital D, the devil.
Right.
And so we're talking about a fallen angel. But Paul talks about sacrificing on altars to demons, and he could be talking about fallen angels, and he could be talking about unclean spirits. The truth is, it is kind of a catch-all term. This is demonic. So what does that mean? Yeah. It's the same thing as saying this is satanic. So the point is, it's a spiritual battle we're in, and this is based on, obviously, there's a hierarchy of the evil side. And so when we say it's demonic, are they demons? It's like they certainly are demonic. So I mean, maybe
they're in opposition to the kingdom of God, right? That's a fair way to put it.
No, let's split more hairs about it and confuse the masses.
Well, exactly. I think that's what he's doing.
This was like, we're joking back and forth on Twitter with him before the debate, but in a serious note, somebody asked me, they go, "What about his book Birthright?" And I go, "It was great. 70% of it was great. The last 30%, not so much." And then he goes, "Well, what was the problem?" And I told him exactly the problem was. The last 30% didn't make sense. It didn't make any sense because I read it and I'm in this culture. I understand this stuff. And I came away going, I don't know what this guy is talking about or what he thinks. And I gave the book to friends, and they come back to me and they go, "Oh yeah, aliens some of them are good. Some of them are, our space brothers maybe." They come back very confused. There's no definitive answers. And I think a good definitive answer when we're talking about the demonic or we're talking about aliens in conjunction with the demonic is saying, don't talk to these things. Don't do CE5. Don't contact them, because in all likelihood, they're not coming from a good place.
Right. Yeah.
You err on the side. The side of caution says, I don't understand this. How can we trust any of this? So therefore, if your default Christian position is it's demons, bro, well, that's probably better than thinking the opposite of like, oh, maybe some of them are nice.
That's funny.
We call it, he's pretty nice.
We call it grandma maxing as a joke on the show. And it's a hypothetical scenario where you have a grandmother character who doesn't know anything about conspiracy or aliens, but loves the Lord with all her heart, is immersed in scripture. And when disclosure happens, she goes, I don't know what those things are. They seem like demons. I'm following Jesus Christ. She wins. She's good.
Right.
I'm not saying you should live a life
she knows
like that
enough.
Yes, we're called to make disciples of men, so I don't think you should live a life like that.
On
you
the
should, spread the word and do that. What's that?
On the other side of it, why I'm kind of passionate about erring on, just with caution about what's happening here is like, I think episode 13 or 15, we had our friend Colin on, and I've been friends with Colin for 4 years, 2 years before I decided to start a conspiracy podcast, and I was like doing other stuff. This dude's been having experience after experience, did mushrooms, was in contact with an entity that was a blue entity. I think he was calling it Anu. This thing was friendly. It was giving him great advice. Oh, it was crazy. Yeah, he's actually been on the confessionals after, because I pushed him along to Merkel because he shares this common thread of being in Indiana and kind of being recruited by this entity that has him doing stuff for him. But now that comes with the plethora of other things for Colin and now his family. Every time I catch up with him, more UFOs, more abduction experiences,
orbs, all that.
His girlfriend, sleep paralysis. His girlfriend's experiencing these things. And on the other side as well, he's still in contact with a blue man that he thinks is a good angel and is giving him good advice. And I try to tell him, like, with kid gloves, like, hey, maybe I don't know how you're going to separate from this, but you need to, because I don't know if this is good for you. These things come together, you know, so you'll have like good cop, bad cop. But the reality is that you're dealing with all of this phenomenon right now and you're not equipped to deal with it. And this is the same exact thing that kind of Alberino is flirting with.
Yeah.
He'll call this nonsense and he'll call this experience, you know, poppycock or non-substantiated. But this happens to people, and this happens all the time. They open up the door.
He's referencing a body of work that is abductee testimony, but he'll pick and choose. He'll cherry pick which ones he's in alignment with and which ones he's not. But if you're going to say that the Antichrist is going to come from disclosure, and I'm going to say that aliens or demons are demonic, how are we even saying something different? You know, that's where things became really strange to me. Is I'm watching this documentary, I'm watching him say this, and it would be like, you know, JT, if you were armed with a bunch of information and I was armed with a little bit, and I said these things are demons, and you said, pretty close, dude, not quite, but like you're over the target. Let me explain to you.
It's like the demons are actually their kids.
But he's
like,
not saying any of that. He's not like, he's just like, if you say these are demons, you're an idiot. And I'm like, that's bizarre because you're not helping. So, you know, time goes forward. I'm watching the rest of this documentary. Age of Disclosure comes out while we're reviewing Alberino's documentary. So I go, the next one we're watching this live with the audience, by the way.
Which we got a strike on YouTube for watching. That was a mistake.
I've done something stupid like that before, too.
Yeah, it was not good. But, you know, still the audience got to see it. So the next thing we do is we watch Age of Disclosure. Unbelievably boring. It's like a watered-down Avengers film where Elizondo is the hero character. He goes from being the underdog who no one will listen to, and then finally his voice is amplified and people are taking him seriously, and he's got a team around him. And who's the team? This guy who's been in the Air Force for 28 years. This guy who's been in the Navy for 30 years. This guy who's been... And they've all seen it. It's Commander Fravor's Tic Tac UFO. It's I couldn't keep up with it with my jet. It's shutting down the nuclear facilities, disarming nuclear warheads. Over and over and over again. It's nothing new. It's just talking points. It's
suggestion.
It's propaganda.
Yeah.
It is exactly what it is. It's propaganda because it's meant to give you your cooked up opinion of this phenomenon as we approach, you know, this big reveal. So I watch it, nothing new, very creepy, very Fed-like, very propaganda, cold, crappy, you know, whatever. And then we go, Timothy Alberino has done a review of this documentary. Now we're going to watch that. So we watch it.
If you want to see a man's heartbreak live,
watching Matt watch that documentary.
Watch Matt watch that documentary, and you see a man die.
Yeah, because it's like there's his
hero.
hero.
Matt watching his hero Tim review the Age of Disclosure
after watching his hero Tim talking contradictions.
Yeah, being, you know, hanging out with Steve Quayle, climbing megalithic structures, dressed really cool like Indiana Jones.
A little chubby.
Shit. A little bit chubby. He was a little puffy.
Yeah.
I think it was like an inflammation issue. But, you know, when we watch Age of Disclosure, everybody came away being like, that felt like, 2021.
COVID stuff. Yeah.
Giving you your talking points, giving you, you know, trust the science.
Fed slop,
dude.
6 feet.
So this is what
it felt like the 6 feet, right?
Yes, it felt like all of that. So Matt, we're all on the same page. I'm going, yes, it's disgusting. Now let's watch his review because I think I saw in the comments somebody said, why are you glazing Age of Disclosure? I said, there's no way that same guy who was on that megalithic structure saying that the Antichrist is going to come and the Vatican is facilitating it because they're going to, you know, baptize their space brothers and they've got the Lucifer telescope that sees an infrared in space and they're seeing all these UFOs, all this crap. You turn it on, dude, and he is in lockstep. He loves this documentary. He thinks it's fantastic. He echoes the exact same sentiment that happens in Age of Disclosure very early in the film, maybe around like the 20-minute mark, where they say there's an old guard of religious people, which is obviously, given the context of the next sentence, you know who the religious people are or what kind of religion. He goes, that have been standing in the way of progress because they're calling these things demons or of the devil.
And I will say, I'll apologize to Timothy Alberino because in the beginning of the debate episode, I did clip that. As David's making that, as David's making this point, I then clipped Timothy Alberino and I put him making his own point. And it's a little mean.
But it was true.
But
that's the point. The
I
point
feel like
is
you
it's the
needed to
truth.
see it, right? It's
Yes.
like, wanted to look at that.
Yeah, because if I tell you that this is
Look
what he
at it,
said,
Matt.
you know, and you never saw it, he might be able to have some plausible deniability. I never said that. So we took the clip of him saying just that.
Here's you saying
and
that.
put it right there at the beginning of the debate. And so They're saying that there's this old guard of religious people standing in the way of the progress, and they're calling it devils and demonic. All of a sudden, when you watch Timothy Alberino and he starts talking about that part, he goes, yes, these people are misguided, but they're calling it demons or demonic, and they're standing in the way of progress. And I'm like, what the fuck? Why are you saying the same thing as this Fed slop, right? And it's really clever because it's very subtle. And what it does is it's like the art of subliminal messaging. You've planted a seed of doubt. Everybody knows who calls things demons and devils, right? That's Christians, right? So, okay, Christians have been standing in the way of progress. Their intent is good, but they're misguided. That's what Alberino says. That's the phrases that he uses, misguided. And so...
Sorry.
What the hell was that?
Yeah, my
misguided. So now, when this phenomenon starts to unfold on the world stage, and Christians go, "Hey, dude, pump the brakes. These things are demonic. These are not in alignment with the kingdom of God. This is a deception." You're gonna go, "Oh, sweet Christian, your intent is good, but you're misguided." So why the hell is Alberino saying that? And then, like you said earlier, JT, if Blurry Creatures is saying that, and Alberino is saying that, and that's in lockstep with what Age of Disclosure, which is FedSlop, is saying, what's really happening here? Like, that's where things became really strange. So I'm just preparing to have a debate with this guy, and that's the thing that I find in my preparation. I'm going, wait a second. What's going on? Then you find pictures of him and Elizondo together having a cigar. Right?
Yeah.
Kissing. No, that was my fault. I did that. I made Brock and him kiss. I took that down.
And that was wrong.
And it was wrong of me, and I apologize. But you see this happening, and then you find out that Alberino's got billionaire backers, right? He's got a billionaire backer, which is interesting. And the way that I'm looking at it is this guy who's backing him, if you're a billionaire, you kind of automatically have ties in politics and stuff like that, right? Like, there's going to be politicians.
Yeah, it's really hard to believe that there's a completely honest, forthright billionaire.
Exactly.
At the very least, even if there is a completely honest, forthright billionaire, when you take money from him, you're going to do
what he suggests.
They're suggesting.
And even if it's that he's telling you what to do, it could just be like through organic conversation, you hear what this guy would like to see. And then you go, I could facilitate that. You know what I mean? So it's like, what if this guy, all it takes is for this guy to be like, yeah, man, I think disclosure is really important. But I got friends in like the Pentagon, and they're saying like there's this old guard of Christians that are like in the way, and it's kind of been slowing things up. Alberino is a guy who is influential, whether we'd like it or not, in our Christian conspiracy space. He does a great job. If you're looking through marketing, this is a guy that you could prop up. Boomers are going to love him. He's got a look. He's got a way of articulating. He sounds hyper intelligent.
He's got his own mouthwash brand.
It's not true. We have it now. That we have the rights to that. Right. And so this is a guy who you would want to prop up. And so like I hate.
We're not saying that
in the space feds.
We're not saying that it is. You're just saying that's what we've stumbled upon.
And it's a very simple line of thought where you go like, oh yeah, dude, if this guy is tied in and he goes like, yeah, we'd like to see progress on it, but like these people are standing in the way. Nudge, nudge. You know what I mean? It never has to be a spoken deal. It never has to be anything. It could just be like, oh, yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Actually, in my research, these are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, according to the Book of Enoch, which is infallible. Whatever. If that's your take, fine. If that's what your idea of a demon is, that's fine. And so I don't think that that's what Greys and Insectilins and the tall Nords are, or any of that crap. It's just, and then you get through a conversation and it's like, hey, man, it would be great if you were saying this more, And
right.
By the way, the last thing that I'll say on it before, I'll pass the ball back to you because we're filibustering.
We're Alberino.
No, you're good.
His response to this, to the fallout of this debate has been wild. I mean, he immediately got on Blurry Creatures like a few days later after the release of it to do like a damage control episode.
We'll pass it back to you, but like, it's just crazy. Like after the entire collapse of this relationship, whatever we had with him, I got to go back and look at it. And I'm like, okay, we're doing a podcast where we're saying that aliens are demons. It's not really the big thing that we're saying, but it is one of the things that we're saying. It's not even that big, this podcast. It's big enough to be slightly influential in very small corners of our community.
It's big enough to have viral value on Twitter because we do that often.
Yeah. But it's also an easy target because the hosts are borderline retarded.
Yes.
So I'm like, did this person see this and think that they're going to come over here and put a feather in their cap and like add us to their mantle?
Yeah.
You know, like,
because it looks like it, because right now he's tagging Joe Rogan. Disclosures on the horizon. Steven Spielberg's movie is coming out. Disclosure Day.
Oh yeah, Disclosure Day, which looks totally demonic.
Yeah, 100%. I'm
Totally
we're gonna watch.
demonic.
We're gonna pick it apart. But this is the season, right? You're getting ready for this big thing. You want to be the guy in the space who's an authority on it, you know, for the people that have a biblical inclination, and you're making the rounds on Sean Ryan's show and all this stuff.
The Daily Wire.
So yeah,
Glenn
let's
Beck,
get another one out there. These guys
Poole.
go viral on Twitter. So let's get on there. Let's smash these dummies, and then we'll push those clips out, and that'll be another thing, you know, that just kind of amplifies it. Instead,
Hey Tim, how'd that work out?
dude, so you watch the documentary. We gave him enough rope to hang himself with. He filibusters for 95% of the episode, barely makes any points, cannot answer a single question, no matter how simple the question is, and makes himself look like an asshole. And the comments overwhelmingly on the video are of that same thing. This guy went on forever, made no points, right? So not only does he look like an asshole, but one of the few moments where we actually interject, it's a damning accusation. And among all the crap that he said, it was articulated. It came to a point. You knew exactly what the implication and what the question was. And his answer to it was a shit show. Then we do create virality around it by memeing him to death on Twitter.
That was only, and again, this is not how we interact with people generally. But if you call for my livelihood, then yes.
Yeah, he got on Twitter. He said we weren't Christian. He warned people against listening to our show or associating with us.
I understand.
I get it. It's reasonable.
Yeah. We're bad people.
And
also
look,
true.
The other thing, too, to keep in mind here is he did that. Called us fake Christians, said that we were misleading people, said that you should be warned against associating with. What did we do? We made pictures of him as a cat. We made memes. None of it was cruel. None of it was vicious. It was so silly.
We made him into a Pharisee.
We did. That was
accurate.
Funny. That was a little bit funny. And I did make a picture of him kissing Elizondo, and then I had to take it down. I did cross the line. I said that was too far. It was gross. It was very passionate. And I issued an apology even for that. But my point is, we didn't say he's a Fed. He's misleading Christians. This guy is an operative. Don't listen to Tim Alberino. We never did any of that.
We let him talk.
We said he's a cat.
Yeah.
Like that was what we did after all this. And so the virality of that is the exact opposite of the publicity that he needs right now. And Joe Rogan is currently like being disenchanted with Elizondo. He's been talking about on the show because
this
Elizondo...
is actually a very good point. I don't know if we should even say this yet because this is like...
Oh, well, yeah. I don't think it's worth saying just because it doesn't...
There are things leading up to this narrative that I guess Indiana Moans wants to get onto Rogan. I don't see it happening. Maybe it will. Hopefully. Good for him.
I could see him, but like I said, I know somebody who's been on there now. So I guess there was a time where it was unthinkable that people kind of in our space would get on there. But I mean, this dude's been on shows on the History Channel and stuff like
He's
that.
Been on
So
Sean Ryan's.
I could totally see him being on there. So I actually believe
the reason I don't see him being on there is because Rogan has now had on that guy Jay.
Is it Jay Anderson?
Jay Anderson.
Anderson, yeah.
Who completely just laid waste to Lou Elizondo and his narrative and is exposing, all the doxing and the malfeasance.
Right, so he's not going to be able to use him as a source.
Yes.
Yes, and Alberino has cleaved himself to this guy for whatever reason. I also have some information that I can't reveal right now that somebody will be going on Rogan. Let's say from the opposite side of what Alberino and Lou Elizondo would
maybe
be
much more the
opposite
aliens
side.
are demonic side.
Maybe exactly.
Okay,
that.
awesome. Well, it's funny because Tucker Carlson's been saying that. So he's been kind of like Tucker Carlson has kind of really veered into the space where like we're in alignment on lots of things, almost scary. Yeah. So we're again like this is another maybe a controlled opposition op where it's like, man, he's saying almost like the exact same things we're saying.
I know,
now.
and I have to check now. I'm like, wait, what am I saying? Am I wrong here? Because why is Tucker Carlson saying?
Well, of course, it's the thing is like that. Was it Albert Pike once said is like we'll give them their leaders.
Yeah,
so
we'll give them their
I'm not one of these people who like. I realize that people could be a Fed and still enjoy hearing them talk at some point. I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's like, is Tim Alberino a Fed? It's like, well, he associates with them. Very clearly he does. I mean, he's, like you said, he's connected with Elizondo. And that was the interesting part of like watching y'all's debate, was that when he got to the point where he was citing different sources, I looked them all up. And then I went down and I did kind of do the research on Elizondo. And oh gosh, this guy is a complete fraud.
Yeah.
Like all of the things. And it was really interesting. So he came from this program called ATIP, which was not even a real program. It was actually called, was it OSAP? Was like the original program. And this ATIP part was like a 3% of it, according to like the director of this program. They got $22 million of government funding for it. And when I looked into what that program actually was, it was all connected with Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah,
and it was connected with werewolves and what they said, prehistoric beavers and monsters and Bigfoots and all this stuff. So that's the funny part about it, is it's like that the reason this story has gained any traction in the past few years is because of Tom DeLonge propping up these feds. Like, they literally, Lou Elizondo is in counterintelligence at the Pentagon, right? And then this other guy I think he was connected with the CIA, and I forget. So there was this company called Bass that got the contract to work with them. And one of the main guys there was like a high-level Scientologist who worked with the CIA through, astral projecting and like the spy program and all that stuff.
To this shit.
So it's all connected with, again, 97% of it, according to the director. He wrote a book called, I want to say it was the Government Skinwalker Ranch thing. I forgot the guy's name. I was going down this rabbit hole, but he was saying 97% of it was all about the paranormal, and only 3% of it was about the UAPs.
Mm.
And then
so because whenever you
this
have
guy,
these
Lou Elizondo, became this mouthpiece for this disclosure. But when the New York Times and Politico wrote those big articles in 2017 about this, they omitted all that part out of it. Yeah. Because they wanted to shine this story up to give it some credibility.
They wanted to be taken seriously.
Because it wouldn't be taken seriously, because all the Skinwalker Ranch stuff sounds like total fiction. It's fraud by fraudsters who've been doing this crap for 30 years.
Yeah, that's the same Achilles heel of Indiana. I almost called him Indiana Jones unironically, of Timothy Alberino, is that he wants so desperately to be taken seriously, which is why this whole thing didn't work out for him, because what he wanted us to do after the debate was to basically get like venomous and say a bunch of horrifying crap to him, and call him a bunch of slurs or something like that, because we have a little bit of a history of that, and we're trying to be better people. And instead of doing any of that, we just got really silly with him and made him look like a clown. Instead of, really harsh insults or anything like that, he's denouncing us, and we're over here having a silly goose time. He doesn't do well. That was the real. The people say, like, why did you go about doing it that way? And I go, because I saw the guy's weakness. The weakness is in his desire to be taken seriously.
Yeah, I was going to say, he takes himself a little too seriously. For sure.
Yes, that's what he wants more than anything. So yeah, the whole thing. I mean, even if you go back and watch the debate, obviously, he's talking about the lack of existence of a spiritual realm. He's saying that in the alien phenomenon, it's unilaterally a physical experience and not one that. And it's like, dude, I know it very intimately. If you listen to testimony from experiencers, they'll often say, like, I don't know. Sometimes it seems like it happened to my physical body. Other times it seemed like it happened in like an astral realm or some shit like that. Like, there's nothing solid within the body of evidence from abductee testimony that suggests it's strictly physical. So he's just going off on a bunch of things, making 1,000 points. We could not address them. You got to understand, when you watch this documentary, we had one dagger to drive into him. And that was, why are you in lockstep with a propaganda piece? And why are you dismissing Christians' notion that this is demonic in the same way as the propaganda piece? That I had to deliver that. And if I started to pick apart every single point that, like, if you watch it, we check out for a lot of it. Because
he did. I mean, yeah, no joke. He talks probably in 20-minute segments where you guys don't say anything. And I don't want to say this because I was on your side. I believe that your side is the more correct side. I thought he actually did a pretty good job because he did have the debate tactic. And of course, if this was going to be a real debate, and of course, hindsight's 2020 for you guys, so I'm not going to give you any flack for it. But it needed a moderator because he became the moderator for the whole thing. It's funny because you and I had talked on the phone before when you guys were even talking about setting this up. And I said, he's not stupid. That's one thing. He's not dumb. So I think that he did use that time. And I think he did use those tactics because I think that I wanted to say that I thought he mostly came out good as he could be going on a show that's definitely on your home turf. So of course the comments are naturally going to be, they're naturally going to be on your side because they don't agree with him already. I was saying, it was funny because we just talked about this recorded JT's mixtape yesterday, and I said mostly I don't feel like you guys really laid a glove on him. That's the way. That was my first impression. Now looking back, I think that your point about the age of disclosure and his comments about that was a really good gotcha moment. But unfortunately, he just went right past that. I don't even remember what he said, and I think that's what I'm saying is that nobody kind of and I get it. He's a guy who's he's got a presence. It's very difficult without being really contentious about this thing. Answer the question. Really try to dig down because he really didn't. And he did just word salad. It's just like a politician where when you get him in, you get him caught, and then they talk for 15 minutes and you're saying, I don't think that he answered the question. And then before you know it, you guys had moved on because this was a long show. And I want to say that out of 2.5 hours, he probably talked for 2 hours out of that time.
There was a debate on Joe Rogan. It was between a carnivore and a plant-based diet, 4 hours long. And at the end of it, I realized I chose carnivore, but you came out the other end being like, the nature of debate is such that both parties can bring evidence and keep the conversation moving along, and that evidence will mount on both sides. And I know it's up to the listener to decide, but when I heard that particular debate, I was like, no better off than before I was, subjected to all of the information in the debate. So, I don't really think that some debates can be won, but it's if you leverage debate tactics, it will often come to a stalemate. And so I didn't think that, number one, we're not, I'm not an intellectual. I do research. I've been in this game for 20 years. I often come to the conclusion that all the things that I've learned, I'm actually not better off for it. It just the more you learn, the more you understand that you didn't know shit before and you probably don't know shit now. And so the idea of getting into a debate with him seemed like a ridiculous notion. And in fact, I also realized the reason he picked us is because he thought if we try to have a debate with him, that he would have won, handedly, and we would have looked silly.
Well, yeah, it's like fighting you're going to fight a shark in the water.
Exactly. And so what we did
Good
was
luck.
Deployed something totally different against him. And I think that was really the only way. It was to remain unpredictable. You allow him to go. And I realized this very quickly, 15, 20 minutes into it, that this guy is just speaking in circles, not making any points. And like I said, you let that go on, and the people who are critical thinkers, they're going to see that, man. And so, he did that for however long that he did it. And I only had this one punch that I really wanted to deliver. See, that's the other thing too, is if you're going to debate somebody.
Well, I did. Part of the reason we got stuck for 40 minutes or so in the beginning is because when he's talking about the symbolic nature of angels, and I'm like, so you're just discarding these scriptures in the Bible.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, these are purely symbolic. And, everybody agrees. It's like, no, not everybody agrees. Not everybody agrees on that, Tim. Are you throwing out these scriptures? And he's like, no, just forget about the Bible. This is what it really is. And I'm just kind of like, this is,
well, that's why if you pay attention, and look, I know it's unfair to frame it in hindsight, but if you pay attention, what he was doing there, I think, was he was trying to create a scenario where you looked at the Bible mostly symbolically, and then you looked at the alien phenomenon as physical. And he was trying to separate them as best he could.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I can kind of see that in retrospect, because then when he starts to disregard the spiritual world altogether, like that, he's really, it was almost like his main argument was just about his lack of understanding of a spiritual realm. It was like, if I can't understand it and if I can't quantify it, then it's not real. So we should just view it like we can see everything and explain things. But who said you have to understand a spiritual realm? Who said you have to understand the supernatural?
He was
read the book of Job
from the very beginning.
God says, Job, you don't understand what's going on. That's fine.
Yes. Were you there when I laid the foundations of the earth? If God's having a meeting with his council and Satan slinks in to talk about his servant Job, like, where is that happening?
So much later on, I guess toward like the last communication that I had with him on Twitter, somebody had said something regarding the spiritual realm and this debate that we were kind of going back and forth on. And I go, hey, listen, you're talking to a rational man. These things, they just don't resonate with him. And then he goes, as opposed to what? Irrational? And I said, no.
Yeah, he said, what should I be? Irrational?
Yeah, what should I be? Irrational? I said, no. You should trust the Holy Spirit and ask for guidance, because these things are complex and we're not going to understand them. And to say that you have complete understanding, grasp of exactly what's happening, case closed, is ridiculous. And after that, he blocked us and then
denounced.
Well, it's kind of like in the Bible. It's saying that it's taking like the wisdom of men, and it's like they're turning these people into fools because you're trying to explain this thing in a material world when the Bible is leading you to believe that there's things that are real that you can't see. So what is that if not a spiritual world? And of course, I'm screaming at the YouTubes when he's saying there's no spiritual realm. I'm like, well, where did the dead go? Because their bodies are still here, so their spirits go somewhere, right? So if they're all in the earth somewhere, is that a place that we could tunnel down and go to?
Well, that's what he thinks.
It's funny because it's almost like it's almost like a simplistic view, like a child would have, that you could dig it down to hell. I mean, maybe you could, but I mean, I guess the point is like there's a bunch of spirits down there. So is that not a spiritual realm? So what about the kingdom of heaven? He wouldn't. I want to say that he was trying so hard to make that angels are just physical, but it says in the book of Hebrews that don't we all know that they're all ministering spirits? It says that in Hebrews 1. So in the book of Enoch, the Lord is called the Lord of spirits. So where do the spirits live? God is spirit. So, they're in a place where we can't quantify it, but that's part of walking in faith. Like, we really don't understand all this stuff. So we're really just supposed to be guided by the Holy Spirit to just do things. But when you try to boil down, I think sometimes he has forced me to kind of really, like, how can I defend what I actually believe? And am I wrong about some things? And that's why I would give him credit, even when I still disagreed with him a lot, because he did make me think about things. But yeah, he was leaving out a lot. And I think I do believe that was a tactic that he was employing, that if he didn't like your response, he would just talk and talk and talk, and then he would get past what you said, and then before you know it, you're moving on. And I could see it was like he was wearing you down. It was like,
so when it comes to explaining something, I posted a quote that's allegedly from Albert Einstein. A lot of things have been attributed to Albert Einstein that I don't know if they're true at all.
A lot of quotes are attributed to lots of very famous people, and you find out
if it's true.
When you actually try to get the sources on that, you find out most of these people never said that, and maybe they were just characters.
This is a good quote, nevertheless, if it's not from him. And it says, if you can't understand a thing simply, then you just don't have a firm understanding of it, right? And so I think
that's very similar
to you can't teach a thing.
It's very similar when your kid asks you what a word means, and if you can't explain it to them, you really don't know what it means.
Exactly. Then it's time to say, like, I'm not too sure. Let's look that up.
I have to look that up.
And so, I think that's absolutely true. In fact, I pride myself on taking some of these, really complicated concepts and introducing them to our audience in a way that, like, I grasp it. And I thrive off people understanding where I'm coming from, in other words. And so it's really an art. And I'm not saying I'm the best at it. There are people some of my favorite people are phenomenal at taking a complicated thing and making it easy for an individual to understand. And I do think it is the mark of grasping an idea.
Right.
Is the ability to articulate it simply. This dude did none of that.
No,
which I
think was the goal. The goal is to muddy the waters.
But all you did then is, with anybody with eyes to see and ears to hear will look at that and say, that is not a man who has a firm understanding of the concepts that he's dealing with. And that's fine.
This is also what starts the fallout after the show.
Yeah. Well, hold on. I just want to say there's nothing wrong with not having a firm grasp on these really crazy ideas. What becomes a problem is when you then put your foot down and say you're an authority and the science is settled. That's where the problem comes in.
The evidence is conclusive. And I was just like, that's when I was really like, what's conclusive? These guys
We're
say
dealing
it's
with
true?
really difficult ideas, hidden ideas, obfuscated ideas, really things that transcend the physical realm to a realm that we don't even know exists.
Is it conclusive the insectilids wear capes with high collars like Dr. Strange?
Conclusive. The science is settled, JT. How dare you? Don't question it. Don't question the experts.
I thought they wore
like
mock turtlenecks.
Every single time. Yeah. No, every single time, JT, they wear this. I was like, I mean...
They have their government-issued cloaks.
I've heard of it, but the way he hit us with it, too, I was like, oh, man, like...
Yeah. Talking about the mantis from Space Ghost?
Yeah, it's like you're talking from coast,
kind of
nodding
nodding off a little bit, and then you're like, wait, what did you say?
I'm sorry, what? I thought he was joking when he said that. But yeah, man, look, there's nothing wrong with not understanding this. We're never going to understand it. Lean not on your own understanding, right?
But at least try.
But don't come off as an authority. Don't come off as the definitive line in the sand. This is where the knowledge is, and on the other side of it is not. The science is settled. The experts agree. You know, all this crap is like, what are we talking about? This isn't mathematics. You know, this isn't something that always 1 + 1 = 2. This is something that is intangible, that the greater scientific community says doesn't even exist. And now you're telling me everything is settled? And as you're telling it to me, I can't understand what you're saying. And he said that was pearls before swine, by the way, which is like, is that me being too stupid to understand your concepts? For the first time in the show's history, hundreds and hundreds of episodes, all these guests that we've talked to, and we do a great job of being like, oh, dude, I see what you're saying. Mm-hmm. Never once did that happen in that conversation. Never once did that happen in that conversation. Maybe a couple of things when you tell me that the Pleiadians are going to save us from the Greys or some shit like that.
And that's when I wanted... I know that we had the conversation before and you were like, you should do this to him. You should say this. You should invite us. We should do this. And I was just like, yo, no.
We're going to kill him with this one thing.
Not even kill him. Like, I want to know what the fuck you're talking about, dude. Like, legitimately, This is why I do the show that I do. Because I want to know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I don't know what you're saying.
And is that because we're idiots, or is that
maybe?
I mean, JT, did you come away with that?
But there's thousands.
He was making.
See, I think where he come into problems, and I guess maybe I want to share this in a second. This is where this follow-up comes from, is because yes, I'm sure he probably read the comments, and nobody was glazing him in those comment sections. They were all on your side, and I think that's kind of like what I was explaining about myself is that. When I first started being interested in Genesis 6, I went to like obviously the heavy hitters like Tom Horn, Michael Heiser, Alberino is one of these people in that space, Justin Fall, all those people. I was listening to them because I really didn't know anything about any of it. But now you really think about it, like, so that's me 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. So then I start researching it, and then obviously guys like you start researching it, and then there's many, many more people in these spaces who have looked into these issues a lot. The alien psyop and all the stuff alike. And then so when they listen to somebody, it's like, we want your sources. We want to understand why you believe what you believe. And I think that's the more frustrating part with the Tim Alberino is that he doesn't just say, I believe it. He's saying this is fact. And he's pointing to this as fact. And it's like, I'm sorry, bro. Like that this has to be taken on faith that you believe that these feds are telling you the truth. And also all these alien abduction stories that he's citing come from these quack psychiatrists who are into hypnotherapy and all that kind of stuff. It's like, so now I'm supposed
hypnosis.
I'm supposed to believe these accounts, and none of this stuff really ever happened like in the past until like it's a modern phenomenon. And of course, you go back to the Lester Crowley quote. We call them angels and demons now. One day we're going to call them something else. Of course, it seems like that's the place we're in. But yeah, so when he's not getting the response he wants, he goes to his Instagram and Twitter and he says, it's becoming increasingly apparent that my views are being deliberately and perhaps strategically misrepresented on social media, so I feel obligated to set the record straight. And we don't need to get into it because obviously it's a bunch of slides. And
you had 2 hours.
You had 2 hours, dude.
And we let you set the record straight.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I'm not trying to be adversarial toward a guy like that because I just think it's not worth it. But like, I want to say, like, that's your fault. Like, you know, like, that is absolutely your fault, because you had 2.5 hours to talk about your opinions, but you made it clear as mud. And from, like, somebody from the outside looking in, it's like, well, yeah, nobody knows what you really believe, other than you don't really believe what we believe. Yeah, right? That's really the only. That's really only difference. And I think that that's where I get really frustrated hearing these kind of opinions. And it's funny because, like the Blurry Creatures people, what they're trying to do is basically say that we're satanic panic, like of the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, like that's basically what we're being accused of. But as you said, the grandma maxing is that when they said that things were demonic back in the 80s, they were not wrong. Now, could they explain all the different ways, and they go back to ancient Mesopotamia and talk about the different deities and all? No, they couldn't, but they were right in general. And so when we say today, this is demonic, we're not wrong. We're absolutely not wrong. And the funny part is, like, so a guy like me who already knows that this government psyop has been a thing for a while. Obviously, you get the Werner von Braun thing. It's like the last card in this stack of cards is the alien deception. You read like William E. Cooper's book, Along Came a Pale Horse. This has been a building deception for a while. And then so you have a guy like Tim Alberino doing documentaries where he's saying the Antichrist is going to come about during disclosure. And now he's trying to parse what is demonic and what's not demonic. Mm-hmm. Like, don't you think that that's confusing to people? Because it sounds like that, well, some of these aliens are nice, so don't worry. So you should trust some of them. And then he's even he's even blurring the lines more where you guys, obviously, you guys did make a good point when, is it of God or is it not of God? And then he tries to cite this verse in Judges 5 about Meroz, and Meroz was cursed because they didn't intervene in this war. But the funny part about it is like, it was saying they were not neutral, otherwise they would not have been cursed. So that you're either with God or you're not with God.
You want to know what's even funnier about that part? That is not even an accepted Judaic teaching. That's a Kabbalistic teaching from some random rabbi that is rejected from his own community. And that's what he's bringing as hard fact to our show.
Well, he was trying to, and he spun this thing for a while. And of course, this is another thing I vehemently disagree with. The idea that there was this pre-Adamic time, and he was trying to point to that verse of when there was this angel rebellion. It's like, it's literally about, I want to say it's the song of like, was it Deborah and Baruch, I think, or something like that? Deborah, and I forget the other one. But it was about a battle that just had been fought. And so he's talking about this pre-Adamic time where there was Star Wars. I mean, like, literally, that's what Birthright's about. Like literally, there was a battle like Star Wars. And I mean, to me, like, that stuff is just fan fiction. I mean, it's interesting, but it's not really rooted in any kind of ancient text, apocryphal, biblical, or otherwise. So when he's saying these things, he's kind of framing it like, well, this is what the Bible's saying. And he's saying that there are neutral factions. But it's, again, like, we know that the Bible, I said this often, is that the Bible is not the history of everything that ever happened that's true. So there's a lot of things that are not in the Bible that are also true. But the idea that there's these other beings that are not meat suits or whatever kind of abominations that could be Nephilim, cryptid hybrids, or whatever, that are, the origin is the fallen angels, that these are also created beings, and they have no real place in the story, but they're acting nefarious at the same time, where lots of them are. Right. Like, again, that's really confusing.
Well, when I brought it up to him, I said, Jesus says, if you're not with me, you're against me, right? So there's no such thing as a neutral camp. You're either for the Lord or you're against the kingdom of God. There's no in between, you know, and he just kind of kept moving. Like, to your point where he just moves on, says a bunch of words, doesn't address the point, and then continues. But I mean, his inability to articulate a point.
Matthew 12:30. But yeah, and also I'd like to stop you there. Like, I understand, again, the debate tactics. I understand how you're supposed to compose yourself in this type of an engagement. I refuse to do it. And that's just for me with everything in life. I'm not going to conform to this because it's disingenuous. It's garbage. This is not how real people do it.
It's like being in a street fight and then you throw a kick and the guy's like, boxing only.
Wait,
no, dude. No judo. No judo.
I'm not going to behave. I'm not going to behave like that under any circumstances. I'm not going to try to be deceptive with my words or create this web that you'll get trapped in eventually later. I'll do it with memes. But like, if we're gonna have a face-to-face conversation, I expect you as a grown man to have a little bit more respect for me
and the audience,
and just like yeah, let's talk. Let's see what we're actually trying to say.
Yeah.
If you want to do these word games, we're in a time now. I think a lot of people, especially the listeners of Nephilim Death Squad, they understand the games. I've exposed them already. I've told the people what they are and how they operate. I'm not gonna play with that.
Come from the political background like you did. Like we've done a great job.
I didn't just fucking jump in here and start doing conspiracy shows. I did Tim Pool way before Tim Alberino was on there. I've done these things. I've already rubbed shoulders with these people. I fucking hate it.
Yeah.
None of them are real. So I'm not going to do that with you. And the audience understands that. And you know what? We're going to continue to foster and grow an audience that will understand that. And the guys that don't, we're going to teach them. And if they don't want to learn, they're going to learn the hard way.
And by the way, those tactics that you're talking about, JT, and you were saying his inability to articulate a point is his fault, right? When he's like, oh, people are misconstruing, or
right.
purposely
Like, you know what I mean?
misconstruing.
Like, it's like we're only using your words. Like, I mean,
right.
Out of the hundreds of thousands you spoke on this show.
Well, I anticipate that there's going to be listeners of your show that are going to want to go check out that debate afterwards. And it is, once again, it is kind of
Pack a
deceptive.
lunch. It's going to be a long one.
It's going to be long. Geez, that first 50 minutes. But, when there's a couple of things that he did. One of them you didn't see because it was off camera. So as soon as he comes in the room,
very funny.
I hit the button and the Indiana Jones music goes off. And I go, Tim, what's going on, brother? Good to see you. Like I'm trying to lighten it and make it, and he doesn't say anything, and then Top goes, "Hey, what's going on, man? How are you?" And then he goes, "Are you talking to me?" Like what? You just showed up in the back. Of course, we're talking to you.
He was trying to big time you. He was trying to intimidate you.
Yes, he's trying to big time.
You tried to big time me when I told you pick Tuesday or Thursday, dummy.
Yeah, and this is all on purpose. There's a lot of things that he decided to focus on that were
As I said, he's not stupid. He's not a dumb guy.
No, he is stupid because you misunderstood how little I care about you.
Yeah.
Like
what I'm saying is like whether it worked or not, he's got a plan.
Oh, he knows what he's doing.
He understands the game.
Strategic.
But
he's strategic.
I think he doesn't understand the game he doesn't understand the players that he's trying to play the game with. Like, I'm not a guy that just kind of showed up and is very happy to have you. I understand this.
Which a lot of people are. A lot of people glazing.
We're not going to do that.
But this is what the audience will see. And I look, this is my own bias, of course, having gone through it. I could be wrong. I'm wrong about a lot of things. But the first thing that he does is when we go to introduce him, instead of giving his plugs, he goes, wait a second. I didn't know that this was a 20-minute. You're not going to release this to the public?
Hold on a second, JT. This isn't going to be released to the public?
Yeah, exactly.
Like right now, because I see that you're recording it, but...
And it's like, whatever, it doesn't matter.
Like we're blurry creatures
The real
or something.
point, yeah, really. The real
members
point...
only. You didn't know that, Tim?
Uh-huh. The real point of that is to get you defending. You now start the debate in a defensive position. And in order to get back to the accusatory offensive, you have to return to neutral. Mm-hmm. So now I have to work and massage this just to get back to neutral, right? Before I could even start
you don't want it to be a complete crap throwing contest where it's like
so
everyone's at each other's throats.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's on purpose. He does that on purpose. The next thing that he does is he tries to steer the conversation by asking the question first, what do we think of the phenomenon? And I go, absolutely not. You're not asking the questions here. So after that, he filibusters for a long time. The reason he does this is because it minimizes the opportunity for question asking, right? If you're just going and going and going, it minimizes the opportunity to push back. And the other thing that he does is while he's filibustering, he makes a lot, I mean hundreds probably, of really crazy points and facts that aren't really facts and opinions and this
interpretation,
and that. A lot of points,
biblical
very little eye
interpretations
contact
and things like that.
Yeah, and now good luck picking one thing to address because you know that he's going to filibuster again if you ask even one question. So eventually you'll see me around the 50-minute mark. I go, this doesn't matter anymore. I don't care about any of the points that you just made. This is what matters. In fact, towards the end of the episode, you'll see it again where he starts talking about the recovered craft operations that are going on.
Totally BS.
And all the dark. And I go, I don't care about that. That's not what I'm worried about. And we push that to the side. So all of it, the reason, guys, if you're listening to this, that he doesn't make any points is probably because all he was worried about was debate tactics. And those debate tactics, when you don't get us all wound up in it and we're not trying to address every point that you've made, just make you look like an asshole with no points to make. So we gave him miles of rope and he wrapped it around his neck 100 times before he jumped.
And then after he wrapped it around his neck and jumped,
he went to flip.
He went to Twitter again and did it again. He accused us. So you accuse us within the first 5 seconds of the show of not airing it. And then on Twitter, you go and start to compile your audience of boomer garglers to tell them that we're not going to air this. And we're like, of course we're going to air this. You look horrible.
And we've never not released a single episode.
Yeah, we're not like your boys.
Right. You know, like when I went on Blurry Creatures and you guys have never seen that episode, and neither have I.
Why haven't I seen that episode?
Well, you know,
you're not the only person.
It is actually interesting. Well, guys, were you saying top?
You're not the only person. There's like 4 people.
Right. I'll go ahead and say the names here.
Sean, Kingdom in Context. I love to see that episode. Karen Wilkinson. You. Who else?
I think there was something where he was scheduled and then he got canceled or something like that. And I believe that might have been. Actually, I don't want to say his name because it seems like he doesn't want to be associated with it.
He still wants the invite later.
Well, you know, it's funny. I've talked about this, but I mean, it's interesting. Of course, this topic coming up is the fact that we released, Brian and I made Ancient Angels. And of course, it's a lot about all this stuff.
Yeah.
And at one point they asked me what I thought aliens were. And I pretty much had some kind of stock answer. I'm like, well, I'm not really sure. I've never met one. So probably like, I guess the Greys could be like what L.A. Marzulli says, is they could be some kind of flesh suits for a demon. But it wasn't like, it was never contentious. It never really seemed like there was any kind of big disagreement during the podcast.
Turns out it might have been a little bit more important than you thought.
Right. Well, I had no idea. Of course, like I said, maybe I was a little bit naive. That I heard later on Reddit I want to say in their Reddit thread or whatever, somebody was mentioning that's why they never aired my episode. So, but anyways, crazy. But yeah, to your point about the debate. For one, it's a little disingenuous to be the one who's pushing for a debate, and then he did not allow for a debate. Because that's not how debates work. Obviously, each person gets equal time to make a point, but he did not do that. And yeah, I think that's likely on purpose, because you would have got a lot more out of the discussion if you'd have said, like a normal podcast, like you invite me on to talk about the Little Season or something like that. You ask questions and then you follow up questions based on what I said, and then you can challenge me on the things you disagree with, because the audience is skeptical too. So you can make your point, and then I can say, well, what about this? How about this? Oh, you said that. That's interesting, because what about this? And then that point would have been harder for him to do what he did.
Yeah, but even that style, JT.
Because he really didn't ever give you it was almost like he started off defining what a demon was, and that took 45 minutes. And then I don't even remember exactly how it even went after that. It was kind of more like, I know you interjected, but I can't even really remember how.
What ended up happening was
like how it went.
We got into this conversation of like, I think it was Matt specifically was talking about things, in the spiritual realm, in the Bible, and da-da-da-da. And then like, it wasn't the point of what Matt was saying, but then all of a sudden Alberino hit us with just a wild curveball, was like, well, what is the spiritual realm? I mean, can we define what the spiritual, and it was like, dude, no, I mean, in order to have a conversation that's beneficial for the audience and for us, we can't get hung up on defining the intangible constantly. I mean, we have ideas, that are grounded in what is virtually a mixture of anecdotal evidence and then like biblical text, right? So you have the anecdotal evidence of the testimony of experiencers, and then, maybe some things that the government seems to be involved in. If it's an MK Ultra program or otherwise, you can kind of see how that fits with biblical scripture and yada, yada. And then that paints a worldview. Do you want to get into all that? Because what did I just say? Testimony. Okay, well, now I've got it. If you're Tim Alberino, you're going to make me explain that. Let's say MK Ultra government related experiments into the psychology of human beings and these alternate realms and dimensions. Okay, if you make me explain that, that's a whole episode. Let's say the nature of how the spiritual realm appears within biblical scripture. If you make me address that, that's a whole episode. Each one of these points is an episode in itself, and in order to have this conversation, we need to go along with some presuppositions. But just going off about the definition of everything ensures that we're never going to get to the point. And dude, I'm telling you, the most important thing for the listeners isn't whether or not there's a spiritual realm, according to Tim Alberino. It isn't whether or not angels have wings, according to Tim Alberino. It isn't whether or not the abduction phenomenon is strictly physical, according to Tim Alberino. It is that he is in lockstep with what is obviously a piece of propaganda. With anybody with eyes to see is looking at Age of Disclosure and going, bullshit,
and
dude.
That became evident toward the end of the show. which then that started to, like, I guess, lean into more of where I'm interested, because I don't give a shit about this like UFO disclosure stuff. It's clearly
because we know
it's
I think that's the funny part, is because we know that this is an op. So I think that's the thing. It's like, and I think that's probably where he probably did struggle more than he would if he went on Michael Knowles or Sean Ryan or somebody like that, because they don't know about the Nephilim in the Book of Enoch, right? Or they know a little bit about it. They don't know like your audience knows. And they also are not as conspiratorial as your audience. So
not as distrusting, even though their host is a Fed.
Well, that's
on the Sean Ryan show.
Right. But that's the funny part now, is like, because I know that you've probably experienced the exact same thing I did. After the Charlie Kirk thing, is like, I don't even know what I can say that I can talk about that an event that happened that I don't have somebody saying, "Oh, you idiot, that wasn't real."
Well,
so they don't believe
point, JT.
They don't believe anything. Like, there's many people in my audience that don't believe anything is real.
So
and
here's
like,
the point
it's very
here,
difficult
JT.
where I'm still trying to be somewhat grounded. So this guy coming on shoveling this Fed slop, I mean, like, your audience is like, we know what you're saying is not true, but we're really frustrated by the way that you laid out your case too. So like, so he loses on two sides with your audience.
With our audience, but I think with anybody that's thinking objectively. So go to his Twitter page right now, type in keyword Candace Owens, keyword Charlie Kirk, Shooter, whatever it is, Tyler Robinson, and you'll see his opinions on these things.
Yeah, that was
and they're all completely, again,
it's weird.
I don't know who did what to Charlie Kirk, but I'll tell you who didn't. The Patsy.
Yeah,
that's very simple.
Lee Harvey Oswald 2.0. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Candace Owens, is she correct about? I don't know. She's lying about a lot of things. Is she wrong about all of these things? No, there's some stuff in there that is certainly interesting and sprinkled with truth. But his narrative on Candace specifically would be discard her, don't listen, throw her out. And I'm like, I don't think we should do that. She's saying some stuff in here and we need to be able to parse through it. So he's just taking this government narrative side. Trust the FBI, trust Kash Patel. And I'm like, all right, this is boomer shit, like boomer slop. And I will not partake. And he tried to give that to us in the show. Sorry.
Well, but that is very consistent though. But I remember that because it's funny. The interesting part is that this whole discourse today is that I went out to Vegas and I met Alberino. I got to hang out with him and Jake Shields. And so I got to see him in a casual setting. And of course I was very skeptical of him, but I was like, we had a decent conversation. And it's funny. Eventually I challenged him on the things I disagree with him to his face. And I thought about the same way is that I've talked a little trash about him, like we all have. And so I didn't want to gain some kind of relationship with him and then have him on my show, knowing it's a big guest and it might be my best, it might be my most popular show that I've ever had by having Alberino on. But then I can't have him on and glaze him. So I got to let him know that I do disagree with you. And I don't view you as like I'm a fanboy, like we're like peers. You might not see me like that, but that's the way everybody else will. So I just want to be honest with you, and I can disagree.
Forthcoming with that,
but of course I'm hanging out with him and Jake Shields in the conversations we're having, and I won't even get into all the things we were talking about. But there was a lot of alignment on topics like Israel and all the things and the politics.
Oh, he tried to do that to us.
2020 and 2021. So then we get home and I text him and I said, "Hey, it was really nice meeting you." I had to think of it over for a few days because I didn't want to ask him on my show. I actually didn't want to be like the fanboy. Okay, will you come on my podcast? So I waited and then I said, "You know what? I think about it. Like we agree about a lot. Maybe I could have you on and I could let you do your thing and then I could ask you we could talk about some of our disagreements." No response. And then after that was right around the time where he started bashing Candace Owens, and I thought, this is so weird that this is not your lane. Like, why are you talking about this stuff? Because it seems, based on meeting you, this seems weird to me. Because he would not have said this to me and Jake Shields because we would have had probably a different reaction to him. So I thought, I just started to think about it when you said, he's gone on the Daily Wire. It's
Are you just starting to think about that now?
Yeah,
when he went on,
an alarming one, right?
When he went on the Daily Wire in Glenn Beck, I said, "What are you doing?"
I had forgotten that he went on the Daily Wire. But I mean,
he makes a lot of rounds on like a lot of shows now.
Well, right. Well, if you think about it, if you do have this, this podcast sphere, like there's a lot of money going into those based on the country they support. So maybe that's why you have this opinion. and you're going to be more friendly to, yeah, to go on other Matt Walsh or whatever, not Tucker now, I guess.
Well, that's the thing is everywhere he goes, everybody like massages his ego, and he loves that, dude. Like I said, he wants nothing more than to be somebody taken seriously in this space.
Gargled.
And I think honestly, the truth might be as simple as he was ahead of the curve for a long time. Making those documentaries is a huge undertaking. You know what it's like to try to make a documentary, right? And there was not as much reciprocity from like a fan base 10 years ago, 20 years ago. And he might have been struggling for so long that now that he's worked to get his public image to where it's at and he's being treated as an authority on things, this is like where the money flow comes in for him. I mean, he has a billionaire backer. At the end of the day, that's not the most egregious thing in the world. If somebody with a lot of money came to us and was like, I love your show and I love your work, like, can we do something together? Are we supposed to go like, you have too much money to be friends with because it'll create a bunch of suspicion? So like that on its own is not a condemnation, but like you could see he's in a position right now to have influence, make money. And I would think that he stands out among the crowd, given his marketability and such. He could have well been approached. It could have been a soft approach or whatever. Like, hey, just run these things. Like I said earlier, the idea that we want disclosure, but there are Christians within the, administration who mean well, their heart's in the right place, but they are just stifling progress
Stupid
because they're
Christians.
labeling this thing. And it's like, oh yeah, dude, don't worry. I have a big influence in a large thing. And then by the way, is it out of the realm of possibilities for a billionaire to be like, oh, I actually know a guy that produces for Sean Ryan. I bet you I can get you on the show. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, I'll get on Sean Ryan and I'll say, people are misjudging these things as demonic. That's too much of a... And it's like, he doesn't have to be totally dismissive. You just have to cast doubt. Well, demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. I don't think that's what we're dealing with here.
But then why come after us?
Because, like I said, at this time... When things are looking really good, Steven Spielberg.
We're so big. We're the guys, right?
We're so big. It's that
doesn't make any sense.
It would have been a good feather in his hat because it would have created virality if it went the way that he thought. Smashing a bunch of assholes on Twitter. We have our reputation on Twitter. We do have a tendency to be able to go viral, and you don't want to. There's a lot of people in the space that you don't want to do that to. People that he would like to have relationships with. Like you wouldn't want to go on and do that to Blurry Creatures or something like that, or you wouldn't want to go on and do that to, XYZ, you name it, somebody from L.A. Marzulli's camp, and I think they're all adjacent, Prophecy Watcher adjacent, but there's a lot of people in this space who, like, you want to still maintain respect for, but those loudmouth ones that are crass, that are arrogant, that, lean with comedy and seem to, constantly have a reputation for rubbing people the wrong way, which we have gained that reputation. Let's go and put the boot up their ass. And instead he just looked really, really bad, which I think explains perfectly the reason he's trying to scramble and do all of this damage control right now. Or else why would you give a shit? Why would you care?
It seemed like a miscalculation regardless, because it almost seemed like that. If I was advising him, I'd be like, why are you going on there? Like there's a lot of people who disagree with me who want me to come on and debate me, bro. And I'm like, no, like what, like if I, we can disagree. Like, and again, we all disagree about stuff, so it's fine. But I mean, if you want to have a friendly discussion with me, then I'll come on your podcast. And if I like you, I'll come on your podcast. But if I don't like somebody, I'm thinking like, you're not putting me on your thumbnail and advertising your show with me on it.
Yeah.
So like I would not want to help those people. And it's not because we disagree or I couldn't smash them in a debate. It's just because like why would I?
Right,
My time is valuable. I have a lot of other things to do. So like why would I do that? So him going on your show gives you guys credibility, and now he's kind of exposed in the space that we're in. And we're not as big as the Confessionals or Blurry Creatures or any of those podcasts like that. But together, like the whole community is pretty big. And I think it is. It's like a situation where this is maybe not quite a white Billy Carson moment where he looks like, gets exposed.
People are saying that, though. I've seen people say that.
I think that's what he's had the opportunity to do. And I will say that he's got a lot more credibility than Billy Carson. But that's what he's allowed to go do, is that Billy Carson could go on these shows and he knows way more about it. And he's quoting ancient texts that don't say that, but nobody really knows what those ancient texts say until he goes on Wes Huff, and Wes Huff has the book on his bookshelf behind him.
That was the best moment ever.
Right, like, so you can't say that it says this when somebody actually knows what it says. And so that's the interesting thing, is like that he would not come on my show. And it was funny because, like, I wasn't trying. My goal would not have been to expose Tim Alberino. I was not going to make a thumbnail like that or do anything like that. But it was funny. One of my friends was saying that maybe that's what he thought might happen, is because maybe I do know enough to challenge him in the way that he would be stumped, when his whole shtick is that I have this thing completely fleshed out. I know every angle of this. And when I go on, I'm an authority. But then when you ask him and he has to say, well, I'm not sure, then he's just like us.
Yeah, exactly.
He would be just like you and I.
He's just like us, but we don't dress like that? Now, that's a whole other question.
If I wear ball caps and not fedoras.
Well, that's the thing, man, is I never set out to debate him. It was never going to be a gotcha moment. It was more like, okay, I made fun of this dude for dressing the way that he does. The reason that I did it is because he's saying if you think aliens are demons, you're an idiot. So, like, you want to have a conversation? Cool. You want to frame it as a debate? All right, you called me out. I'm not going to back down now. I did ridicule you, so it's fair. You know what I mean? And it just wasn't until I heard him say that the Antichrist is going to come from disclosure, and I can't make that square with a guy that says if you think this is demons or demonic, you're an idiot. How do those things not mesh together? We're saying the same thing. You're saying it to a degree more so. If the Antichrist comes from something, wouldn't you say that the something he came from is demonic? So where's the disconnect here? It became so confusing to me, dude. And then the more that, like, so I never set out to do this, but the more I looked at it, the more things made less and less sense. And the final straw was just him saying the same exact shit that Age of Disclosure is saying. And I think, actually he knew that. I made a clip where I was exploring that on my show. And I'm like, why are you saying this? You think the Antichrist is going to come from this? I'm saying it's demonic. We're in unison. But now you're glazing this thing. And he addressed that clip. And he said, this is before the debate. He goes, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. We need to have a discussion, something to that effect. And then we come out the other end.
Now everybody's misunderstanding what he's saying.
Now everybody's misunderstanding what you're saying. Like, because it's not a misunderstanding. You came off as not understanding a concept well enough to be an authority on it. That's the bottom line, dude. So, like, all the points that he made, really weird.
Well, it was really confusing. It was really confusing, especially, I want to say that he's saying it's not demons, right? But then he's kind of really, he presents the idea that the Antichrist could come from this disclosure. But then he's also talking about this encounter that a friend of his had who was a pilot, and he encountered angels.
He didn't like that when we brought that up. You're talking about the Jake
Barber.
Yeah, he didn't like that, and I didn't know that. I didn't know that they were friends. I'm just saying when Jake Barber.
Of course, they're friends.
That's true. Yeah, when Jake Barber does the egg-shaped UAP recovery, and he's suddenly filled with a feminine spirit that he calls as him. Yeah, it overwhelms him, and he calls it the goddess, a divine feminine. I go, oh yeah, the divine feminine is a huge part of this deception. It's something I want to say
it was before that, because I want to say he was talking about his friend having a Cessna airplane, and it was going down, and an angel saved him or something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I'm conflating the two.
But it was like, okay, so the bad ones could be the Antichrist, and the good ones are angels. So what are we talking? Like, what are we talking about here? It's like, so if the unexplained phenomenon, the UFOs, the UAPs could be angels, which again, he makes a distinction that fallen angels is not really a term in the Bible, but we know that some angels are evil.
Yeah.
And then there's some angels that are good. So
it's just more graceful than saying like asshole angels.
Maybe that's what people are seeing in the heavens. It's kind of like what the Bible's always described as like the angels are in the heavens. So they could, they're shooting stars and all the stuff that talks about in the book of Enoch, and like
that was also an incorrect translation of his, where he was talking about the eyes being stars.
That was weird.
I looked it up. I agree with him about that.
Michael, that's not what it means.
Well,
it's actually translated to holes.
Michael Heiser had that opinion, because those are the four cardinal points of like the Babylonian zodiac. That's where that comes from, and so it's like. That's the interesting part. Is funny because I went back, and if you guys have not seen this, you guys definitely have to check it out. I'll send you the link. Michael Heiser did a documentary, I want to say probably like a year before he died, and it was called Angels and Demons. No, it's called Aliens and Demons. Have you guys seen that?
No, I've not seen it.
It was terrific. And Michael Heiser was the opposite of Tim Alberino, where he was very easily understandable. He could put things in ways that the common person, a regular churchgoer, never heard any of this stuff, could easily understand it. And it was really interesting. He had a story about this. And of course, his view, like if you watch it, you'll love it because he's like has the exact same view as the three of us, where he was saying that there was this famous incident at Roswell, like in 1947. Well, they had a 50th year anniversary in, I guess, 1997. So he was saying there was a reporter there asking a colonel there about, hey, so you guys say that, you know, what was achieved there was actually these kind of test dummies for these, you know, I don't know, whatever, hot air balloon experiments. And then he's like, well, I looked this up. The military didn't start using those until 1951. And then so the colonel gave this answer. He said, well, the people who are talking about, he's like, oh, he said, oh, actually, it was 1951. And then, of course, the people are like, yeah, but we're here for the 50th anniversary. It's 1947. And he says, people are experiencing time compression. So they're misremembering the time this actually happened. And, of course, Michael Heiser says, as soon as he heard that, he said, what is happening? And his whole point was that there's somebody in the government that wants people to believe, or that wants everyone else to continue to perpetuate this UFO, UAP, alien phenomenon, because it's likely about some kind of Operation Paperclip. It's actually government craft. It's different technology that they have. And how did they get it? They could have got it from the Watchers or whatever. But
if you look back,
the point being was
go
that
ahead.
his main point was that because if you have a secret program to develop tech and people know about it, that's not good because it's supposed to be secret. So if I lead people to believe everything happening around this military base is aliens, when it's actually just secret military tech, if I tell you, hey guys, I just saw a UFO, well, most people are not going to believe me. But if I said I saw this super secret stealth saucer thing that the government has, well, that's why they would want it to happen. That's exactly why they would want people to believe that. And in the same way, I believe that that's probably why we have these stories about these little green or little gray men doing experiments on people. Because I think some of these phenomena could particularly be literally just sleep paralysis, completely demonic attacks. They never left their house or whatever. But also the other encounters, maybe the reason that Jesus' name doesn't always work because it's people who are doing it.
Yeah.
And then this sounds like MK Ultra to me. Is like he was literally saying that these aliens have the ability to wipe people's minds and plant false memories. It's like, have you ever looked into MK Ultra? So what if the abductions are real? They're really being sexually experimented on. There's really these government, kind of impregnation operations, harvesting of babies and things like that. But it's not aliens doing it. It's people, and the people have memories of aliens doing it. So when they go tell people, I was abducted by aliens, not the government, now doesn't that make a lot of sense? It's like, dude, the whole thing is an op. But it is. That's why I want to say one more thing. Michael Heiser said that these alien abductions had set 20 similar occurrences that kind of kept coming up to satanic ritual abuse.
I was just going to cut you off and say that. Like we had a SRA deliverance minister, and he's describing like these MK Ultra techniques that they went through, and I'm like, man, this is basically the same thing.
It's the same shit.
Why is it the same thing?
Yeah. I mean, that's when he was asking us at the very beginning of the debate. He goes, "I want to know what you define this as," and it's like, dude. It's so multifaceted. Yeah,
do you know what you're asking right now?
It's absolutely massive. Like you're 100%. 1947 is a very particular year, right? The end of World War II, the beginning of the CIA, the MK Ultra program is birthed slightly after that. Like
the work of Andrija Puharich, like that work alone. What we're talking about, you're talking about putting like radio waves into people's teeth, so that way you could communicate with them, like through voice of God technology. Yeah. Voice to skull technology. This dude was actually summoning the Nine with some Indian mystic doctor. And then that work goes on into like Operation, what was that called?
Stargate.
Operation Stargate.
Yeah,
with, like, Yuri
I want to
Geller.
say that the guy who was connected with the program that Elizondo claims to be connected with, one of the main guys in that's the guy who was a high level Scientologist, and he was actually part of that Operation Stargate.
Yeah, dude, it's all one big. So
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's a huge, an overwhelming military intelligence aspect to the UFO phenomenon.
You know what? One quick thing. Is that why he's really coming against Candace Owens? Because that's where a lot of her detective work has led her, is that a lot of this is this military op and Operation Looking Glass. Like, literally, that's the stuff she's talking about. That these people the military are connected with these pastors, and it's all ends up revolving around like child trafficking and all that stuff.
Yes,
and it's like
dude.
it's like it all connected. It
Well,
seems like it is.
So this is for your audience, because this is the first time we've been on your show. It's like, if you watch this debate, we barely contend anything, because it's just like, I can sense all of it is an attempt to drag us off the point that is
right.
most
You're
crucial
never
in
going to
this.
get to the debate about aliens versus
You're
demons.
never going to get to it. Throughout our, how many episodes have we been? I don't even know anymore.
400.
Something like that. 400 episodes of Nephilim Death Squad. The bulk of our focus ends up being in MK Ultra related projects, specifically that start after 47. There's elements of like frequency, the conduction of frequency, the brain as a receiver, these entities existing, these intelligences, demonic intelligences existing on frequency.
What I will say, like, if you do take Andrija Puharich's work seriously, he tried psychedelics, he tried psilocybin, he wrote a book about it, and it doesn't seem as efficacious as frequency.
Frequency is the main thing. Yeah, binaural beats, the CE5 app kind of
all
crap.
of his applied technologies and patents are all, well, I mean, some of them are a little psychedelic leaning, but most of them are frequency, whether it's like dental tooth implants or his ELF waves, these extremely low frequency waves that he was using. And they admit, the government does admit, that this manipulates emotion. It could even change the weather. So there's your implication of the Jews, which is hilarious. But yeah, there's a big deal with frequency. I'm actually working on, it's probably going to be like a 15-part series on worship, the idea of worship. Because in the end, despite what Timothy Alberino thinks, I am a Christian, although, the things I say are a little off color. Well, yeah, that
said you weren't.
Well, we'll discuss it. But the idea that I always focus on, that consumes me every day, is what is worship? As somebody who was a worship leader in church and played an instrument, what am I contributing to? And we have to define all of these things. We have to understand what vibration is. We have to understand like the different physics behind this, and why God desires this order, this structure, the alignment, to be in alignment with him. And it seems like these government techniques all hijack the idea of alignment, of frequency, of disorder, of reorder, of how you perceive these things in your brain, whether it be with binaural beats, where they take two frequencies close enough to each other and they mix it up just enough so that you perceive it as a third. There is something freaky within this. If we're going to talk about like the walls of Jericho, or just saying hallelujah to the Lord God. Why does this matter? Why do we all go into a church? Why do we all sing the same songs? And why does aim matter? Why is aim specifically, why is that term sin? When you miss the mark, it means that you have sinned. So what does that mean? It means that where we're oriented is the exact point that we're supposed to be at. So if you take that entire logic and you flip it on its head, which is what they've done, they've inverted it, they've created a Luciferian inversion, of course it's effective. Right. And then that leads us to where we're at with all of the technology that we're dealing with, all of the science, so-called science that we're dealing with.
All of the push to technology was to get to a point where we can interact on a frequency-based level with these entities. And I think, to your point, you were talking about, I think the Nazis, right? Like, they have these bell-shaped UFO that are, to me, they look like they're reverse engineered Vimanas, right? From like Vedic mythology. And I think that a lot of what we're seeing now when it comes to craft is just a continuation of that project. But you had said something earlier where it's like, is it likely that these things are actually just military and people, and it's interesting that over time,
like that Michael Aquino, who was a high level guy in the government. Yeah,
great eyebrows.
The best in the business.
This idea that as long as this phenomenon's been happening, specifically with aliens and abductions, these things have changed their visage, right? They were like little green men, and then they turn into something else with like silver spacesuits, and like it's never quite.
It's totally like a version between like the Lamb drawing from Crowley, and then but the main pop culture reference we get to what these beings look like is Spielberg. Right?
Oh yeah, who's by the way coming back now to do
and he's
Disclosure Day.
He's doing the Disclosure Day. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, have you spoken with Nathaniel Gillis?
I haven't.
Nathaniel's a fascinating character.
You need to because he's cited examples of abductees or like people that have had these experiences, and one lifelong abductee, they would say that like Fred Flintstone would come to the bottom of their bed, and it's like, yeah, will you let me now? It's like whatever suggestibility is necessary.
As whatever it is.
Right. It's exactly what like the devil would. I mean, exactly how the devil would work. It'd be like, which way will you be deceived? I'll deceive you. I'll deceive you in that exact same way. I think it's interesting. It's just funny because like Stranger Things just concluded, and I don't know if you guys saw it. I made like a shorter video, and I was kind of breaking.
I was abused as a child, and you get demonically possessed. You'll be gay.
Well, of course that too. But the funny part about it, I made a shorter video about season 1 because I was watching it again, kind of lead up to the last season coming out.
It's a great season.
And it's funny because I have, Brian has a different view about these kind of things even than I do. But he was kind of saying that the whole like kind of reptilian phenomenon and people like morphing into different things, he was saying he didn't believe those are physical things. It's like it's like people have the ability to see in the spirit. So this person is manifesting a demon, but you and I could be in the same room together and somebody could like look like Venom for a second. And I'd be like, did you just see that? And they'd be like, no, because it's not absolutely physical. So that with that kind of understanding, I know that the first season specifically about Stranger Things is based on the Montauk Project, like a real government op that they were experimenting on children. So like the story of 11 it's interesting how they got her with short hair and that, because they called them the Montauk Boys because it was all boys. Yeah. That they were doing probably really wicked, depraved things to them. So anyways, the show goes where that Will gets taken at the beginning of the show. But if you really work this thing out without kind of like the fictional layer that they add to it, they have to go to the lab at the end to get him back. So what they want you to believe is that a demon monster took him to a different dimension, but you could get to that dimension by astral projecting like 11 did. So my conclusion is what they were trying to make you think is that all these things are physical. The only physical abduction was that lab, the government was taking children and doing experiments on them, and then they were putting them into this astral plane against their will. So what if that kind of is showing you like what these alien abductions are really like? So these people have real trauma, real physical abuse. Yep. And now that they are completely messed up because of it, because these are 3-letter agencies. Like that's what they're doing. Because in that show, the thing that really kind of clued me in onto that was the fact that if this kid was taken by a monster, well, how come the lab ended up producing this fake body and trying to say that he wound up dead? Like, so how would the lab have known that he was in the upside down, that this monster went rogue and snuck out and got the kid? It's because the kid was at the lab, the scientists were experimenting on him, and that's why he was missing. You know what I'm saying? Like, so doesn't that kind of make sense? And that makes sense, like that it's more likely that we want all the cryptid stuff to be real because it sounds cool. We all want the Kandahar giant, as Tim always talks about, to be real. But what if most of these things are not actually real? Right? They're not physical, because that is the opposite, because they want you to think everything is physical.
Yeah, I think it's not beyond them to create like actual hybrids like in a lab.
I still leave room for that, but I think the great majority of the
specifically to bolster the point that you just make, where it's like if you release these things out into the world, it just further increases the idea that these are physical. But you were, I think, spot on earlier when you were talking about the overlap between the MK Ultra program and this phenomenon. It's like the reason we look at it like it's all demonic is because if you're an experiencer And albeit like experience or testimony is very faulty, but there is patterns that emerge, right? The sleep paralysis is always one of them. The awareness of entities in the room with you is always one of them. The feeling of doom, like mortal doom, like something that transcends the typical fear of even, an animal encounter or a robbery or anything like that. This doom that befalls you is like transcendence. And it almost, in my opinion, seems like it is manufactured by a piece of technology, maybe infrasound or something like that. Inexplicably bright white lights always present in either, this paralysis experience where it's demonic or this abduction experience where it's ETs. It's like a 1-to-1, man. I think that it is the same phenomenon, which is really interesting because if you look at that overlap, which doesn't happen in anything else, right? It's like sleep paralysis and demonic encounters is almost a 1-to-1 with alien abduction. Why in the hell did we have Timothy Alberino on the show for so long trying to separate the two? Like, that's a crazy thing because if you experience, I've experienced it before. My mother was, my grandmother was an abductee victim. And what's really interesting is she wrote papers on remote viewing and shit, which is all like CIA shit. It's all MK Ultra shit, right? I don't know what she was. She's dead now, and she's been dead since I was 6. But I had access to her stuff, and I could see like all this really beautiful handwritten paperwork on remote viewing, how to do it. I think I more than likely had some generational iniquity because of the shit that she was involved in. But she was a lifelong abductee victim, and later on in life, I would experience much of the same stuff, but I didn't label it alien. I don't know what I labeled it, but once I realized the patterns were there. Okay, I'm paralyzed. There's a presence in the room. There's this unbelievable feeling of doom. I feel like I'm being electrocuted, like to be paralyzed, like stiff as a board kind of
technology.
A deal. It's technology. It's to me, it seems like technology. So,
look at what we just did to the people in Venezuela.
We made them bleed from their eyes and shit, right? I mean,
right.
with frequency weaponry.
Well, isn't it interesting again in the later seasons of Stranger Things, 11 can't use her powers when they use that frequency weapon against her.
You said that. That was an interesting little slip in.
It's an interesting admission. It's almost like they got to tell you kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what's interesting? Michael Heiser, when he talked about, he brought up some of the most famous abduction stories, like historically, and one of them, the guy had contact with this alien named Shemyaza.
Oh, wow.
Right.
They'll just tell you their names.
So if you know the Book of Enoch, that was the head watcher that led the rebellion and made the plan to go sin with the women. I mean, that's it's just funny. That's what he was saying, exactly what you guys are saying. Like, how do you ignore all the overlap in just this? I mean, like he was saying, if this guy's making this up, he picked a really strange name. That's a very specific name.
Well, I will say though, I don't think that he was talking to Shemyaza.
Oh,
I guess I think. No, go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
I think the entity that's talking to him knows and is telling him for this exact reason. So it's like, more of a replication and kind of like just an imposter.
Yeah, like, do you think that there's entities that'll present themselves as like Satan or
why
Lucifer,
would you say
Anu? But they're not like that high level, but they're almost like, would an entity LARP as a higher level entity in order to fill you with an additional layer of fear or something like that? Yeah, like our buddy who, has these experiences, we talked about him earlier. The entity's name is Anu. Anu is like the angel of death or something like that.
Yeah.
Like if you look that up, and of course, obviously, it's the preface for Anunnaki. I don't know. I think they give us these things because they want us to go like, okay, here's an interesting thing. Within the alien abductee experience, there is a lot of narrative given to the victim, and they'll return back and they'll share this narrative. And one of them in particular is that of a pole shift. This idea that humanity's overdue for a pole shift and we need to ascend spiritually and so that we can escape this coming calamity, and that the abductee, despite being a clear victim of this, has been chosen. Now, it's not always a pole shift.
Everybody's special, right?
Everybody's special. Such a great way to hijack us is with the special thing. And it's not always been a pole shift. Sometimes it's just been a calamity. People will be given tidal wave dreams and things of that nature. But none of these predictions have ever come to pass, but they've been consistent in this coming calamity. This apocalyptic scenario has been consistent in the abductee experience for decades and decades and decades. And sometimes they'll even give the abductee a date and the abductee will talk this year.
We got one with Chris
date.
Bledsoe this year,
Yeah,
right?
Chris Bledsoe, exactly. We're going to see something come, I don't know, April or some shit like that. But the point is, it never comes to pass. But what does happen is the abductee victim goes out into the world. They share what's happening. They tell people. They introduce people to this new age, Gnostic gospel.
It's always Gnostic. It's always
Gnostic. And so I think the point is to create such a sense of urgency. You need, in order to get somebody to spread this thing that they don't want to spread, right? Because who the hell wants to go out and say they've been abducted? In order to do that, you have to convince them that the fate of humanity depends on it. People need to know this Gnostic New Age gospel shit in order to avoid, planet-wide decimation and the extermination of the human race. So that's always been consistent, but it's never come to pass.
And also, interesting sidebar, the Stranger Things, the 5th season specifically, shout out to Wes. I forget his last name.
Oh, dude, yeah. Wesley Roth.
Wesley Roth. He came on the show and he broke down the actual, the hidden agenda behind the 5th season. And it's not just to expose your kids to gay stuff. It's the Gnostic gospel.
Yeah.
And like there's example after example after example, like
the Mind Flayer is the demiurge.
Yeah.
And Vecna is the embodied avatar
of Jesus Christ.
Right, yeah. He picks 12 disciples and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, exactly. Fills them
He's
with their
crucified.
spirit.
He's shot through the hand. It's there are so many things. Go
always
watch that episode if you guys.
Always inversion with these
Always
people.
an inversion. Always an inversion.
And a brilliant one. It's because it's layered underneath.
You know what's interesting about that show, though, as I said, the show never was, it peaked in the first season, clearly, but it's based on it. But
and honestly, it was really good the first season.
It's based on a real story. So I thought it's interesting how they, what probably most people believe, and of course people in our space believe, that this upside down is literally kind of the dark astral plane, right? It's kind of like a low vibrational plane that's parallel to here. Kind of like what you guys were talking about, the story of Elisha when he shows people the chariots of fire. They're already here. We just can't see them. Yeah. So that maybe they're on a different frequency. If we could understand it in any way, maybe they're on a different kind of vibrational wavelength than we are. But it is, all these dimensions maybe are overlaid against each other. But then what they try to do at the end, they try to science it up by saying, oh, no, the upside down was just a wormhole. And then there's this new planet, like it's Nibiru or something coming in.
Yes.
But what's funny, they call it the Abyss. You know what I'm saying? Like,
that's right.
So all of a sudden, at the very end, it's aliens. Like these are like the Mind Flayer's an alien. It's like it's almost like the Tim Alberino have a writing credit in this, where it's like, how about this? Let's take all the spiritual stuff out of it and let's make it aliens in a space rock. Like what?
So what they're actually saying is if Jesus is on this planet, if they're Jesus, which is the bad guy, and the planet is descending, right? How do they reach that planet? They go up to a tower. So now we're like recreating the Tower of Babel. You have like this idea of New Jerusalem. It's brilliant.
It is. It kind of is. Like
I don't know if I would say it's brilliant. That show is.
It's brilliant if you're an asshole.
It's brilliant if you're an asshole. Yeah. You know what else it is too? It's chock full of all that divine feminine shit. With right now, the Bledsoes are talking about the lady who is Mother Mary, who is also Hathor, Isis, Ishtar, you name it. All of the heroes of that, basically the climax of this thing. 11L obviously is a big, short for Elohim, is a big divine feminine character. All of the Nancy, she gets to do the Rambo thing, right?
She had the hair and everything, and she faced. She was killing all the people in the military
too, because she goes to chamber around and she just like slaps the top of the M16. It was very strange. You name it, the heavy hitters in the film. Think about who caused the most damage to the demiurge. It was like the mother of while the dad gets tossed across the room. And then the only male character that's allowed to be, some sort of a hero, number one, is using demonic realm powers. And number two is gay, AKA filled with the divine feminine. Like, it's all just this big divine feminine bullcrap. I think that is the really big, one of the big aspects of this coming Disclosure Deception is going to be probably the introduction of this entity that is either Hathor or might be LARPing as like Mother Mary or calls itself Isis or Ishtar. This is coming from the Bledsoes in a really big way.
You know what I believe about that? You want to hear my theory on all that divine feminine stuff? I believe that the divine feminine is the devil. I think
that's interesting.
I think that's why that it feels like that. Of course, I believe we're in Satan's little season. I know you guys don't agree, but I do think that the way that the kind of the idea of the Baphomet is kind of this gender inversion, and then you have like the Statue of Liberty, and I think you guys would probably agree that it's a woman, but looks like Apollo, it looks like Lucifer, it looks like Helios, but it's almost like in this new age where we've entered, there is this flip on the story. And I read what was it, the Testament of Solomon, really, really interesting kind of it's an apocryphal text. I don't necessarily validate it, but there's a story where Solomon has a sigil ring and he's commanding all these demons and he's asking their names and asking which angel they're bound to and who they have to listen to. And so eventually he gets to Beelzebul, and Beelzebul is called the Prince of Demons. And I want to say that he was connected with this star called Hesperus, which was the Greek name for Venus. And so if you really think about
Ishtar.
Well, if you really think about it, so what is Venus? Ancient mythologies would say that Venus is the morning star. It's the one that pulls up the sun. It's the last star visible. So that kind of idea of like that Venus is Lucifer, that kind of idea. And so Venus is always portrayed as the divine feminine. And you even think about kind of like the Captain Marvel series. So in the comic books, he used to be a man, and then now Captain Marvel is a woman. But
and isn't it an eight-pointed star?
It's got it's the symbol. Chest? It's the symbol of Venus.
Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. You have like the razor for woman, the Venus razor. This is all stuff from like you. I'm dating myself.
It's funny how they do that. They introduce all this shit.
Well, it's just like what God set an order in is obviously that God's a man. God set up men to be. He said he established an order. So the devil obviously is trying to cause discourse, so he's going to invert that. So I think that it kind of makes sense that also I disagree with Tim about the idea that angels are just kind of one form, and that's how they always look. Very clearly in the Bible that they can appear as different. They appear as men. It sounds like in the story of Genesis, they almost sound like regular men, but then when you read in was it Daniel 10, it's like they're clearly looking different than that. People always recognize that they're angels. So the point is, and this might actually fit into Tim's worldview because I like Tolkien a little bit. So in the Tolkien mythologies, that there were these Einar, were these lesser gods that they're the god character in Eru Ilúvatar created, but they could all appear in the physical universe however they wanted to. But they were kind of general neutral, but they could appear as they wanted to. So I think that the devil could take the form of a woman if he could take the form of a snake.
Oh, yeah.
But of course, Tim says the story of the Garden of Eden is an allegory. So he doesn't even really believe that was actually history. So I guess the point is if you're willing to kind of, allegorize parts of the Bible and make certain parts symbolic when it's convenient to your argument.
When it serves you. Yeah, especially if your goal is to make that separate from the very physical alien abduction phenomenon. These are not the same thing, shouldn't be conflated. I think that, really my big thing that I just hope people take away from that debate is there a seed of doubt being planted in the cautionary words of Christians who call disclosure the introduction of demonic entities, one way or another to us? Is that cautionary word valuable? Should it be entertained? Because Tim Alberino says, it's the heart's in the right place, but it's misguided. And Age of Disclosure says these people have been standing in the way of progress. And when these things come, and if they do disclosure, they release, technology that they've been sitting on for a long time, and this technology saves us from the economic collapse that McCaw in London is worrying about right now. If it introduces systems that eliminate famine and all this stuff, if it makes your life easier and we're ushered into a childhood end style utopia, right? If that's what happens, people are going to look to Christians who sounded the alarm as if they stood in the way of that right. Utopia, that heaven on earth situation, cures for cancer and all these miraculous things that could have been alleviated long ago, but these industries stood in the way of that on purpose. if all these problems become solved by the technology that they give us, and Christians stood in the way of that, it's not going to be fashionable to be Christian. And it's definitely not going to be fashionable to call them demonic.
But the argument, I think, toward the end of that episode that we did with them should be framed as you're doing this right-hand path, left-hand path.
Yes.
The reality is, if there are old G gods that are in our government or giving the orders in our government and they are ready to reveal themselves, you're not going to stop it. So everything else is just a facade, a push and a pull.
Yeah. Because what is he saying to you? He's like,
well, this is what I told, like, just to quote myself on what I told Alberino the last engagement that I had with him, when he asked if he should be irrational. I said, you should ask to be filled with the Holy Spirit rather than selectively picked earthly knowledge. Mm. You can continue to pick a side, and you can ask me in the audience to pick a side, but neither of these sides are correct. Mm-hmm. The correct side is going to be the Holy Spirit.
He was trying to really push somebody into a binary choice. Are you with the white hats? Like literally, it sounded like the Q stuff.
Yep.
Are you with the white hats, or are you with the bad players here? Right?
Yeah. Are you with these pedophiles or those pedophiles?
Which is really funny too.
I'm with God, and I'm going to continue to ask God to fill me with the Holy Spirit. And honestly, I think that's why this entire engagement went down the way it went down for him. He's not operating
in faith.
He's not operating like a Christian person should. And this is coming from somebody who uses a lot of language and does a lot of memes and whatever. I operate my entire life through faith. Whatever I do, to be honest, it doesn't even make sense to me. I pray and then I do. And when it feels like I'm told to move in this direction, I move. There's a difference between operating in the Holy Spirit and being a completely rational man. Now you need to be rational. You need to have some sense about you. You got to do some math. We have bank accounts and things like that. Sure. But if you're not operating that way, in the end of the day, you're not equipped to talk to the people that you've been talking to for the last 20 years. We're at the end game here. We're at this point where something's about to go down. And if they're looking at you for advice, they're lost, dude. And I'm not saying to look at me either. I'm just saying, hey, man, there's something bigger than us that we can look towards, and it will give us sound advice every single time. Why are you not saying that?
Yeah.
Why are you abdicating that duty?
Mm-hmm. I think, by the way, part of what really stung him is, JT, what you just laid out, how it felt like QAnon, right? Like it felt like white hats and black hats.
Like that's what I'm saying. Like your audience, and of course, people like me, like we know all the psyops. We're just like, this sounds like you're giving us a false dichotomy, like
false binary.
Like here we have to do this or this. Like this is
There's always a third option. There's always a narrow path. But after the fallout, we realized how funny it would be to make Q drop style memes.
Did you see these?
You know, I want to say I saw part of, like, that's the funny part is like that I was listening to the show, and then later I went over to X and I was watching your Don't Meet Your Heroes thing, and then I started to hear all this, and I was like, I didn't know any of that stuff. Then Brian later telling me,
dude, we went so hard. Yeah, man, it was so funny.
No, I'm gonna go back to one thing you said, and we probably should close it out here. But
sure. That
you were saying that you're quoting Tim saying that their hearts are in the right place, but they're misguided. Yeah. But in my view of all we're doing, your heart being in the right place is way more important than knowing something. You know what I'm saying? Dude. Like that is actually more important to me, and that's why we would say like that the grandmas who love Jesus, love each other, they don't need to know anything else. They say, all I know is that's evil. I don't like that.
Yep.
And that's all they need to know, because their heart is in the right place. And so if you err on the side of this is demonic, like trying to hedge about what demonic means, it's like, how much minutia are you dealing with here? Like this phenomenon is evil and it's not trustworthy. And if you're putting your faith in these like literal like literally 3-letter agencies, you've got counter intel. And I'm supposed to trust that, and now we're at the same time we're all wrestling with the idea that since the past 5 years, most people have woken up, we're being lied to about everything. So why would we trust any of the stuff that you're saying today?
I mean, why would you lean on your own intellect? And by the way, sure, maybe if you're Alberino, you could do that. But what about the masses of the populace who, like I said in the debate, don't have time for that? You know, they're working 9-to-5 jobs. They don't have the the luxury that we have, especially here on our show. It's like we get to do this for a full time. So it's like all we do is look at this stuff and analyze it and look for patterns and all this. A lot of people do. This isn't even on their radar.
And nor should the funny part, nor should it be for the most part.
Agreed.
And that's the funny
Yes.
part. Like I said, I did not go down that rabbit hole, like going after researching the sources that he was citing to realize, yeah, I was right. It's all a bunch of BS.
Let me ask you something, JT. Do you think, because I'm in this place now where this is like, it's been kind of weighing on me heavy, and because of this, I've almost like backed off my aggressive research. And it's that like conspiracy is, let's say it's like
hey, this is his show. You don't ask the questions.
Well, I
No, go ahead.
this is
No,
something that's
absolutely.
been on me. So conspiracy, if you look at it like a rabbit hole, and all rabbit holes eventually can converge and turn into like a den underground, right? That rabbit hole is parallel to Gnosticism. And if you follow it to its end, instead of giving up on leaning on your own intellect, even conspiracy will take you to this place where you're going to start asking questions like, is the God of the Old Testament like really the good guy?
Right.
Like, is Christianity just a control? Because I went through that a long time ago, and then I came out the other side saying, no, Jesus Christ is real, and Christianity is the way. The Bible is correct. But you could see that it all leads there. And it's like, I can see everybody almost like kind of leaning on their own understanding and coming to this same place. And I've been feeling like there's a point of diminishing returns with information, where like these days, I think I really am leaning more on the Holy Spirit to like, hey, if there's something I need to understand, reveal it to me, nudge me in that direction, show me something, confirm it, like guide me, because my own intellect has led me to be wrong countless times in the last 20 years.
You want to know a great example, JT? We were pushing to build a studio.
Oh, this is a great example.
As we were doing Bohemian Grove, and that gets canceled in the town that we were at because of people didn't like our comedian that was there. And the studio that we wanted to build, and we were pushing as hard as we could, was above a coffee shop, because we just thought it would be super cool if we can get guests in and then they can have coffee and then they can go upstairs to our studio. And everything is lined up to do just this. And it fell apart in the most fantastic way possible, like in a way that's completely unexplainable. And a couple months later, we build a studio in my house and we're doing it IRL. I walk into a coffee shop with zero intentions, and probably, I don't know, a couple weeks after that, we build a studio inside of a coffee shop and pick up a third member of our show that is leading us or helping us to rediscover, not just rediscover, but present the Bible to our fans in a very meaningful way. And it's like, it's one of these things, everything in my head, I'm an analytical guy when it comes to this kind of stuff, like when we're doing business, but everything in my head was like, yes, makes sense. Coffee shop, podcast studio in this town. This is perfect. This is what we're going to do. And you push and you push and you push until finally God just smacks it out. He's like, but to my credit, it was like, hey, close, but you're still stupid. This is what I meant. And then this is what
timing wasn't right.
Was supposed to, the correct timing, the correct place.
Yeah, God's timing.
Correct inclinations, but we never know exactly. You never know. You just kind of have to like be, that sounds very new age, but it has to be filled with the Holy Spirit. It has to be filled with this knowledge and like try to understand the best that you can. Yeah. And also be willing to move when it tells you to move. You can't be like, I am just grounded here and I will never, because my ego or my intellect or whatever, that's ridiculous. And it's never worked out for me. This has been working out great. Yeah. So that's what I continue to do. And as I do that, we just like move, we've been moving leaps and bounds forward and toward God, not just in a direction, but toward God in a very meaningful way. Even though you look at our Twitter and it does look a little off color.
I think you guys should probably clean that up a little bit. I think you guys could do a little better there. But praise God. Well, and I think it's cool that you guys have somebody who can kind of challenge you guys spiritually in Matt. And I saw that a little bit. Yeah, that he can maybe soften out some of the rough edges. But what you're saying is that knowing is the antithesis of faith, because we have to hope in the things that we can't know or can't see. And that's what faith is. So walking in faith versus knowing everything. And yeah, it's back what you're saying, Raven. Yeah, I've experienced a lot of that, especially just because I've researched so many things. And I always quote in Ecclesiastes 1 where Solomon says, with much wisdom comes much vexation, with much knowledge comes much sorrow. And so there's certain things that I've learned, it's like, I didn't need to know that. Like it's nothing's really caused me to question my faith, but it's like, I didn't need to know that. And the more you continue to dig in, and maybe it's like that quest for, that revelation. Oh gosh, you learned that thing, and it's like a spark, and you're just like, it's so exciting. So you're continuing to chase that. But a lot of times it's not a spark. It's more like something in the pit of your stomach. And I think that, trying to know everything. I don't know. I guess at some point I just realized that you're going to have to go based on faith regardless. You're going to have to go based on belief, because it's like that. Yeah. Let's just say I listened unbiasedly to your podcast with Alberino. And at some point I would have to say, well, I'm still having to trust him. So what do I actually believe is being said? So you have to consider the source, and then eventually you have to decide on your own. And I think that that's the more important thing that we've been trying to point back to together on the podcast, is that it does, you don't need to know all the conspiracies. You need to know Jesus above all things. And so, I believe that still my why is that I'm interested in these things, and I can present them in a way that can lead people back to Christ. So that's why I look into these things. Because I think that if it was me in my personal life and I was doing something else, I wouldn't have to do this anymore. And I'd probably do a lot less of researching things, but I'm trying to present things in a way where there's all these psyops and there's all these mysteries. So if I can present it in a way that leads back to Christ, well, then it makes sense. But if it doesn't, it's really easy in this space to just go find mind-blowing revelations that have nothing to do with Jesus, because that they'll do well on social media. So there's always that battle. And I'm not saying that I don't see what's popular and I don't want to talk about the thing that I know that is in the algorithm right now. We all do it. But sometimes I have to challenge myself. Have I forgot what I'm here to do? So I think that, again, that's why I said, if your heart's in the right place, then I don't think you're going to go wrong. But if your desire is more knowledge for more wealth and more things and all that kind of stuff, then now it gets into Gnosticism, where your knowledge can make you better than other people. And I think that without saying it, I think we know who we're talking about, where you've seen that somebody who's very learned, where they don't present themselves like a Michael Heiser, who's seemed very humble for all the things that he knew. And so you don't get that vibe. And it's not because he's saying he's humble. It's just you just see it. You're like, this guy seems like a wise teacher. And I like listening to him, versus somebody who's telling you what to believe. And that is what really drives me nuts.
I get caught up on things less and less these days. The disclosure one to me is a big one, because I feel like it's on the horizon, but I'm less into conspiracy these days, despite the nature of the show that I do. But I know you're trying to bring it in for a landing, so I'll make this really quick. The way that we look at it on the show now is this metaphor of the golden apple. So Persephone is a goddess of chaos, among other things in Greek mythology, had these golden apples. And, long story short, there's a bunch of instances where she would toss them into a situation, and the characters surrounding that situation would become fixated on the apples. And in one story in particular, Hercules comes across it, on his travels through a tunnel, and he starts interacting with it, and it starts getting larger, and he starts smacking it with his club, and it becomes so big eventually, with all the attention and the smacking, that it blocks his tunnel. And I forget exactly who it is. I don't know if it's Aphrodite or whatever, basically says to him, had you not interacted with this thing and just moved past it, this thing wouldn't be blocking your travels right now. And so the apple causes chaos. And I recognize that within the conspiracy world, we are given these things constantly, these chaotic golden apples to obsess over. But the path that you're on, which is literally your orientation towards Jesus Christ, it is the narrow path, right? Picking up your cross and following Christ can be derailed by any number of things that you see fit to obsess over. These chaotic apples, Epstein files, you name it. I'm not saying these things aren't worth
Jews.
The Jews.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not worth going, hey, look at that apple.
Yeah, hey, that apple's poisoning the world.
But you've got to move on because the most important thing is your
Why is
walk
that
with
Apple
Christ.
making all the pornography?
Exactly. Who did that Apple own the boats?
Did they just bomb Gaza to smithereens?
Right. And that's fine, but it's like there are people, and we see it in this community, that will get stuck on a thing, and it's like, we're all in the pursuit of truth. And I'm not saying that it makes you like a bad person, but there's a hijacking of our very nature to be fixated with a thing that other people refuse to see. And that fixation can stop you on your walk with God. You have a very narrow path, right? Wide is the gate, narrow is the path. There's all kinds of ways to fall off of this into, what is either literal or metaphorical hell. Walk past it. Keep going. Don't smack these things until they become so large that they literally stop you. I mean, I know guys that, we were shoulder to shoulder with them that just got like, I'm just going to name a name, but like Stu Peters is a fascinating guy. And we've been on his show a multitude of times, and I don't know how to place him these days. We backed away from him because his golden apple became the Jews. It almost became that golden apple for us too. But it's like, what's more important, this or your pursuit of God? And so, yeah, man, I think it's we did an episode with a couple of guys from a show called, shout out to Disagree to Agree, Subliminal Messenger and Amen Rat. It's a simple concept, but it's sometimes a story will help you, flesh a thing out. And now whenever we come up to a thing, we have to ask ourselves, is that a golden apple? Are we bonking the golden apple?
Did we bonk Timothy Alberino too much?
Probably.
Probably.
But we're done bonking him now.
Well, perhaps.
Perhaps. Well, it is interesting, that story. I'm sure it's not without the irony that it's an apple. We know that the fruit from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, the Bible never says it's an apple, but that is the symbol for the forbidden fruit. So this apple is symbolic of this knowledge that's distracting you for maybe your path of faith.
Yeah.
Because it's like we already know that part. Like, that's the part that's important, and that's the part that the gospel is actually very simple.
Oh, yeah.
We're told not to be deceived, but that part of it is the more important part. And so when people think about being deceived, they're always thinking about being deceived by the Antichrist or this or that. The deceit is leading you away from him. It's not about, like, if you have that understanding, then you won't be deceived by the other stuff, because it's literally like the Holy Spirit is leading you through faith to walk and follow Christ. So it's not about, is it aliens or is it demons? And I think that's kind of where we should probably leave it, is that it's like, where does this fit into your idea? Because I do believe in a spiritual realm. Where do you believe that, is this getting you closer to Christ, or is this leading you away from it? And I would say that, yeah, if you want to say that they're demons, I think that's probably the safest conclusion. So anyways, guys.
One more thing, JT.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just want to say this because got to drive home that point. I do archery, and that term is extremely fitting for the idea of sin when he's telling you to sin no more. But when you pull back, and it's not just about like general aim. If everything is not in alignment, is not correct, if your posture is not correct, if your breathing isn't correct, if the wind around is not correct, when you release that arrow, you're not going to hit the center point that you're aiming for. And you just have to be off. My elbow just has to be slightly higher, or maybe not by my cheek. And I have now missed the mark. So like what we're talking about here is everything. It's like, how are you structured, aligned consistently? And are you going to miss the mark? And the answer is always going to be probably yes. We don't hit this mark very often. But how close can we get, and how mindful can we be when we're positioning ourselves, when we're drawing our bow? That's the important thing that I think people should really think about.
That's what the Bible says, keep God in your mind in all matters, right? In all matters. So it's like everything you think about, everything you do, God should be at the forefront of your mind. It is hard to do, but that's the
Amen.
That's why it's easy to knock us off that path.
Amen. So anyways, guys, tell everybody where they can find you guys.
Nephilim Death Squad on all platforms, Spotify, YouTube, etc. We've actually stopped really screwing around with Rumble. It's just a big pain in the ass, and so you're not going to find anything there that's worth checking out.
Top Lobster on Twitter, toplobster.com. And if you are in Central Florida, the Standard Coffee Shop, come see us.
Come and see us. Yeah, you could literally come in here. We've had people come by to say hi, and then they've ended up on the show.
Nice. So, yeah, I need to do that. I need to jump in and grab a coffee and come in.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't think Brian got to be in the new studio, but yeah, I mean, it's always a pleasure to have people IRL. So if you want to stop by and chat, if you find yourself in the Lady Lake Ocala area, the Standard Coffee Shop in Lady Lake, come and give us a shout.
Awesome, guys. I really appreciate you guys coming on. It's probably been too long since we've done a show together.
Yeah, dude, thanks for having us.
Of course. So anyways, yeah, all their links will be in the description. But yeah, once again, guys, I really appreciate you guys watching. And yeah, give those guys a listen and go listen to that podcast, as painful as it might be. But
oh yeah,
if you haven't already. But I appreciate you guys watching. I love you guys. God bless.